Embrace the rustic charm of farmhouse-style living. Today on Homeworthy, we're taking you inside 4 incredible farmhouse-style homes. We'll start with a light and airy Texas home built for entertaining, and round out our list with a colorful and traditional residence in Pennsylvania horse country. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. To shop items inspired by this and other Homeworthy episodes, be sure to check out the product links below for amazing furniture, accessories, and more.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Michelle. Welcome to my home in Texas. I can't wait to show you around, so come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Before today's episode, click the join button below to support all of the storytelling we do on this channel. Our growing community of members help to directly fund more videos so we can capture these extraordinary homes from around the world. So join today to receive early and exclusive access to new Homeworthy videos.
Hello, I'm Michelle Howell. I'm owner and founder of Vintage Home Designs. I have a blog where I love to share home decor ideas, lifestyle, entertaining ideas. And we are at my home today in Rockwall, Texas. So we bought a lot about 10 years ago in this very quaint and charming little neighborhood in Rockwall. And we rented a home for 2 years while we designed this home. Over those 2 years, we searched for and bought architectural pieces and some vintage things and just lots of things with detail to add to the home to give the home some character to a new build home. So the outside of my home is basically a farmhouse style. We have a white board and batten home. Part of it is white brick, but we painted it all white. It has a metal roof. So the outside of it very much is a farmhouse style. The inside of the home, I have some different styles inside. I use a lot of neutral decor, so I'm able to marry a few different styles and things together. When you enter our home, you come right into a large great room area that I have divided into 2 spaces, our dining area and our living room. So let's go over and take a tour of the living room first. So in our living room, a couple of the things that are details I wanted to point out that we use to add character to our home are these, one thing is these vintage corbels. I wanted to create the fireplace mantle out of those. I actually bought these at a resale shop in South Texas for $40 when we were building the home. The mantelpiece itself was built out of remnants of some 12-inch tongue and groove board that we used to create the vaulted ceiling in our bedroom. And we had some remnants left, so we created this mantle and also the beams on the ceiling. Those are solid wood, and they were part of a barn tear down we actually found in a town close to our home. We went one day and purchased literally a side of a barn and went back and picked it up the next day. We used the 12-inch tongue and groove on the ceiling in our bedroom, and then the posts that held up the walls of this barn became beams for our ceiling. So it added a lot of character to that. So brick fireplace, I opted to paint that white because I just wanted a very soothing, subtle palette in our home. To cover the fireplace when it's warm months and we're not using the fireplace, I created or remade this fireplace screen. I bought it many years ago when my colors were different and it was black and it was ornate and had a painting on it. So I repainted it in neutral colors and used a really cool stencil on it to cover this black hole of the fireplace when it's not in use. So the bookcases on either side of the fireplace, I love to display things that I collect. Some of them being vintage books. I have a thing for vintage books and for transferware, especially brown. You can see my collection of some of my brown transferware here, and also a piece of the blue. There's just something classic to me about blue and white. So I pull those little touches of blue and white out for spring and summer. My mother is an artist, and so she did some sculpture pieces of my daughter when she was young. And so I love to display, here's one of the pieces here. So that is definitely a treasure to me. I have a collection of vintage wicker demijohns that are on the top shelf, and more of the brown transferware, family photos. And this is just another one of those little fun collections I like. I don't know why, but I love these little vintage yarn balls, thread balls. So I have those just stacked in a vintage basket, which is another love that I have. Lots of baskets in the house. So in the living room and in a lot of areas in my home, I love to layer rugs. I think layers add a coziness and character. So I have a large, very neutral rug on the floor that covers the whole space, and then a smaller vintage Turkish rug, which I love buying those and using those all over the home. It's still a neutral pattern, but it layers well with this, and again, it adds more texture, it adds some character, so I love to do that. And the trunk that I have that I use as a coffee table was my great-grandfather's, and it was a little beat up, and it was a darker wood and stained in some places. So I did a bleaching process on that because I really prefer the lighter woods, and I love having that. It's like a family treasure, so I love using that for my coffee table, and also it offers storage for blankets and things when we're not using those in the warmer months. Again, I love to use a neutral palette, light colors, whites, creams. So all of the furniture in this living room is actually slip covered. And I chose the white because it was a great neutral background. I changed the pillows out seasonally. So regardless of what patterns or colors I'm using, it works with the white. It's also so easy to bleach this. I have 2 young granddaughters, so I don't have to worry about them climbing on the furniture with chocolate on their fingers because it bleaches easily. And the chair and ottoman that are slip covered, I actually bought probably 30 years ago at a furniture store, which I think it's probably the only piece in my home that I have left that was bought at a furniture store, because I buy vintage, I buy estate sale, I just like one of a kind. And it had a different fabric on it, and I loved the feel of the chair so much. So when we were moving into this home, I had it recovered in the white slip cover, and the back of the chair is covered in a French grain sack. So when you come in my front door, you can immediately see the back of that chair. So it added some character to the back side of the chair. Some non-negotiables for me were hardwood floors in the home, and I wanted some brick flooring to add a warmth and a character to the home in some areas. I had that in my previous home, and it was one thing I knew that I would really miss. So I wanted that. I wanted to have a metal roof, and I just wanted to be sure and add lots of architectural things and detail, again, to make the house my own, to make it comfortable and cozy, and to add lots of character to a new build home. Okay, so let's head into the dining room. Another piece I wanted to point out is a side table here I have in this area that divides the living room from the dining room. That was a piece of my great-grandmother's. It also was a little scratched and in disrepair, so I did the bleaching process on that and achieved this beautiful light wood look. And again, I love having that piece and the trunk in my living room that were my great-grandparents. So in the dining area, you can see our staircase. And one thing that my husband really did not want in this house was to walk in the front door and be looking at a staircase. So we designed it where it would be on one side of the home. And he also had this idea to keep the back of the stairs open. And I wasn't real sure about that because it was going a little bit more modern than I wanted. But I'm so glad that we did it because it really keeps this space really open and it doesn't look so closed in. So that ended up to be a really great idea that he had with that. My dining table is a huge round table. It weighs a ton, and there's kind of a story with that. Many years ago, 20 probably at least, I was in a thrift store, saw the table. It was a light wood color, kind of an early American, and I didn't love the color, but I already knew that I wanted to paint it. But when I went to purchase the table, they told me it was part of display. So every few weeks I would go back, and one day I was in there and they told me they were going to be moving the store to a smaller space. And so I asked the store manager, if you're moving to a small space, would you possibly be getting rid of that? They agreed to do it. They told me they would sell it for $120. And I painted the table, and it has been through 3 moves with me now. I don't think I would ever part with this table because there's just something really great and conversational about putting a lot of people around a round table. I can easily seat 8 here, and we can squeeze in 10 if we need to. So back to my love for hosting and entertaining, it just is a really cozy, intimate table for gathering a lot of people here. I love hosting and entertaining friends and family, and I traditionally host Easter, Mother's Day, Thanksgiving, and New Year's Day. New Year's Day is a smaller setting. I have about 5 couples that are friends, and years ago we started a tradition of gathering here for lunch on New Year's Day. I have a traditional menu, everybody looks forward to it, and we can all fit around this table. And then for the other holidays, I can sometimes have 20, I've even had 30 people here before. So we will have people here and in different tables in my home. And I love coming up with a theme for tablescapes and just making everybody feel really special and welcome. So layered table settings and place cards and that sort of thing are really, that just really brings me joy because I get to use my creativity to do that, and the end result is is hosting and gathering my friends and family and everybody being here and really feeling like you went all out to make it really special for them. So in this space to float the table in the center of the room, I ended up with a lot of extra space over here, and I found this great drop leaf table on Facebook Marketplace several years ago, and it's great for a narrow table for a day-to-day because you can walk around the table easily. If I needed to, I can pull this out and either side will flip up, but it's great for like a buffet table if I need to do that. But I love to decorate it here for the season. 2 extra dining chairs, those are the ones we can pull up for this table if I need to seat more people. And I have this cool architectural window with the diamond shapes that I just stood in the window between myself and my neighbor. You can't really see in or out that window from outside very much, but I didn't want to block it with window treatments and block this beautiful natural light. So that the window just gave a little bit of another barrier of privacy to some degree, and it added a really cool architectural element with the diamond shapes of the window. This lamp is one of my favorites. I think it's like a stone or concrete. It weighs a ton. I bought this, I don't know, probably 20 plus years ago, a pair of them at an antique store for like $40. There was no shade on it. And somewhere along the way, I found this cool one that is burlap and it says antiques, which was perfect for me, and it happened to fit the lamp. Most everything on this table, in fact, everything on this table except this candle, was either thrifted or estate sale. I have this beautiful linen Michelangelo book I found at a resale place. This white stone fruit bowl or topiary was thrifted. Book was thrifted. The ironstone soup tureen resale shop or estate sale. And again, this was an antique store years ago. So I love to find those deals, but one-of-a-kind pieces by shopping flea markets and estate sales. So I also have this very strange looking little, it's like a deconstructed stool, which serves absolutely no purpose, but I love the story that this tells. I love the detail of these legs. And so I bought it and just left it like this. And I keep it just tucked under this table for just a little added character. Again, it serves no purpose, but it fits there and it gives another layer of detail. So I find all of my frames, again, same places, estate sales, garage sales. I found one last week that was a huge ornate gold frame with a canvas in it. I don't know that I'll keep the canvas painting, but it was $5 at a garage sale. So I pick those up occasionally because I even like to layer them in places and not even put anything in them. It just creates its own interest when they have that chippy detail, and layering several of them together. It just creates some beautiful decor. My table centerpiece, I love to change up at least seasonally. Sometimes I keep this one fairly simple because when you walk into the home, you can see past this table into the living room where I have all of these bookcases. So a very busy centerpiece here can become very busy looking with this as a backdrop. So I typically keep this fairly simple. And this basket it's a vintage basket. It's huge and it's fabulous. And I bought it for about $10 at a garage sale last summer. And we are fortunate to have privet and wild honeysuckle blooming behind our house. So this time of year, I just fill all the vases inside the house with this wonderful smell because it's very short-lived. So I just put a large vase of water inside the basket and filled it, and it's wild and it's loose and it's natural, and I just love everything about that. I have a cottage garden, cutting garden outside, and we have the greenery behind our home. And most of the year, because we're in Texas, other than maybe January and February, we have a lot of things blooming and still green. So I often, in fact, most of the time, have those flowers and greenery that I just go out and pick out of my yard to put in vases and things in the home. And moving from the dining room back toward our front door, I had mentioned the stairs before. So the first level of the stairs obviously has the treads on the back, and then the next two layers are the ones that are open. And it's a stained wood on the top of the stairs. And a couple of years ago, I decided I wanted a staircase runner. I mentioned I love the vintage rugs. So the man that I buy from online had this really beautiful neutral with all browns and cream tones that would fit the width of our stairs. And so my husband put it on the stairs, literally stapled it down, and just took it up to the wall on the first landing. So it just gives a lot of warmth and character here. And I mentioned I love baskets. So I have this vintage artillery basket that I use at the entryway, and another one of my collections is vintage wooden canes. I just love them. I don't know what that attraction is, but I see them often at thrift stores and estate sales. Very inexpensive. I probably have never paid more than $5 for one. And I have a collection here, and I have one at my back door. So just adds a little detail and character here. And I have a large basket at the first landing. It is a vintage basket with straps on it. I really don't know what that is. I wish I knew its story. But it was just a great way to soften the corner of the first landing of my stairs, and it's just filled with dried branches and dried hydrangeas. Okay, so let's go take a tour of the kitchen, but on the way I want to point out these fabulous doors and probably my favorite architectural piece in the home. These doors were off of a carriage house barn in Iowa. They are each door is 6 feet wide and 10 feet tall, and they weigh a ton. Luckily, I found them when we were first designing the home, so we were able to put an extra header beam in the wall to be able to support these in a long barn railing system. And the idea was that these doors can slide closed and close my kitchen area from my living room. It ends up that we don't really do that very often, but it just adds such a wonderful focal point in this room and when you enter the home. So I have always had a love for design, interior design, fashion. My mother is a fine artist, and so I grew up in a home with her painting and drawing. And although that's not my talent, I was exposed to color and design. So I've always loved interior design. So Vintage Home was started in 2001, and I actually had a partner at the time, and for 6 or 7 years we did some interior design work together, and she phased out in 2008. So since then I have had the business on my own. During that time I had a storefront. It was so time consuming, and as much as I loved it, it was mostly home decor, gifts, and that kind of thing. As much as I loved it, it was taking me away from being able to design for others because I couldn't man the store and do a lot of design projects. So in 2018, I decided to close the store and really focus more on doing some interior design for clients and focusing on my blog and Instagram and being able to share ideas for making your house a home, for some DIY things, for creating tablescapes, and sharing with others how I do that, how I find those things that are budget friendly to be able to, for anyone to be able to do that. So we're in my kitchen now, and I wanted to point out this hutch, this piece of furniture. So this backs those fabulous doors that are in the dining room. And like I said, we kind of designed that space and that opening around those doors, which created a certain size in here. And I wanted to be sure and address the whole wall. I wanted a hutch here, an open front, and I wanted to be sure and address the whole wall with it and not lose space by just putting a small piece. And I had found those doors at the Round Top Antiques Festival in South Texas, which I'm sure a lot of you know. And I also found this piece. So it worked wonderfully. All of this is so old, and all of the shelves in here, it's actually 3 tongue and groove pieces of wood that create the shelves. And they shipped this piece to me, and they had taken all of these pieces out to ship them, and they were not marked. So it was like a jigsaw puzzle to get in here to put those pieces back together. But I'm so glad I did it, and so glad I didn't touch the paint or anything. It's an original paint and finish. And it's been a great place to store my collectibles. I collect ironstone. I have a favorite dishes that I collect. These are an Emma Bridgewater pottery from England. And I started collecting these many years ago. So over the course of years of Christmas and birthday, my family would gift pieces to me. And so I have quite a collection now, and it really is one of my favorite things. And again, the soup tureens, ironstone pieces, these are vintage pudding molds that I just think have the coolest detail and shape, all this beautiful crazing with those that adds so much character. So the idea with keeping a open front hutch in here is that I found in my other home, when I didn't have that all the beautiful pieces and the platters and the bowls were in a cabinet. And I didn't think about using them as much. They weren't bringing me a whole lot of joy being in the cabinet where I couldn't see them. So I decided with doing the open front, I could display them, enjoy them every day, and we actually use everything in here. There's nothing off limits. And so that was the idea between this big open piece here. And I love to decorate and change the top of it seasonally, at least 4 times a year with the spring, summer, fall, Christmas. All of that gets changed, and I really enjoy coming up with a different way to design it every year. I've been collecting those vintage botanicals for years with the idea of doing a gallery wall. I never really thought about putting them there, but when I was thinking of what I would do this year for spring and summer, I remembered those. And so they landed there, and I really enjoyed having those out. Okay, so in the kitchen, again, this truly is the heart of my home. This is where I love to be, to cook and entertain the family and friends. This center island is 4 feet wide by 10 feet wide, and it's a great place for me to just prep and cook, and also I can clear all of these decorative things off and do a huge buffet down both sides of this island, which is what we do when I host the large holidays like Easter and Thanksgiving, when I can have 25 to 30 people here. It's perfect for that. This is a wood top. I went to a wood salvage yard and I chose a wood that I liked, and they made the top for me. It actually was a dark wood, which is the underneath side. And a few years ago, I decided I wanted to change it up. So we flipped it over and just sanded it down. And I kind of did a process to create a lighter wood look on this. And then my countertops are concrete. So they literally poured those off-site and brought them in here and set them. So they were, massive heavy. But I wanted kind of just a casual industrial look in this kitchen. And this was kind of the first thing that came to mind. My farmhouse sink, which goes along with the farmhouse style of the outside and some of the elements inside my home. And then I have this great bay window, and it actually has windows that can crank out, so I can open those weather permitting. So I have my plants. I love plants and gardening, so my plants love the space because it gets so much natural light here. And the plants add a green living character to the home. Another set of vintage corbels similar to the ones that I have on the fireplace mantle in the living room. Another flea market find. And this was a couple years after we moved into the home. I found those and really wanted to use them to add that another detail of architectural elements to the home. So I had my husband mount those on either side of my kitchen sink in a large, to frame in this large area around this bay window. I created the two glass doors on either side of the sink because I feel like it created kind of an openness instead of all of the cabinets being closed in. And I did want to display some of my white dishes and my pretty glassware. So obviously those cabinets stay fairly neat, but that's why I kept it to just the two sets of cabinets, because obviously I didn't want glass front everywhere, or then, they have to be neat and tidy all the time. So I just like the openness that it creates when you're looking at the sink end of my kitchen. On the island, when we're not entertaining and using it for food prep, I keep a bowl of fruits and vegetables out here that we do use daily. And I have this really cool large, it's a wine opener that I found years ago at the Pottery Barn outlet. I really, really wanted this, and it was a lot more than I wanted to pay. And I was in their outlet store one day and I saw one and it was half price. So I grabbed it, and it's just, we use it, it does work. And it's just a really cool conversation piece in the kitchen. And I love candles, so I always have my candles displayed here. And I have a tower that I have plants on, and then things we use every day, like our napkins, our salt and pepper, I use vintage silverware every day. So I keep that there. And I also love lamps. I rarely use overhead lighting. I have lamps everywhere, and I wanted one on this island, but I didn't want a cord running. So since this is wood, my husband cut the plug off of the end of the lamp and drilled a hole just small enough to thread the electrical cord through. And then when he got it through, he attached the plug back. And there's a wine refrigerator underneath this, so it already had a power source, so it's plugged in. So you can see the little bit of the cord here, but I just tuck my little flowers in there and it camouflages that. And then I have my candle, my lamp on, and this stays on most of the time. In the kitchen, I wanted a really different detail on the ceiling. And my idea was to buy planks of vintage beadboard, chippy paint and that sort of thing. And I quickly found it was going to take forever to find enough, because this area, kitchen, sitting area, breakfast area, and all the way down out the hallway to my back door is so big, it was going to take so much. And as I started finding it, it was going to be very pricey and take too long. So I opted for the panels, the 4x8 sheets from just Home Depot or Lowe's. And they placed those up there and then just put thin strips of wood in between to hide the seams. And we painted it all white. So I kind of achieved the same look, but definitely much more on a budget. And then the lights over the island, when we first moved in, I had more of a farmhouse industrial light that was up until probably a year or maybe two ago. And my taste was changing a little bit with wanting to get away with the traditional farmhouse look. And I love baskets and woven things, so I found those at our house, and we changed those out. So I'm really loving the texture that adds over the island. So one last detail that I want to point out in the kitchen, that's another one of my favorite elements, is this cool arched door. This goes to my pantry. I have 5 or 6 vintage doors in the house that I bought before and had the carpenter frame those doors in to be able to use different doors. This door I found when we were designing the house behind a friend's antique store, literally just leaning against the wall. The paint was peeling off, and structurally it was in good shape, but the paint was in disrepair. And I went back and forth 2 or 3 times because I couldn't really decide if I wanted an arched door. But that's one of those things when it keeps coming back to you and you wish you bought it. I went back and I bought it, and I'm so glad that we did. I stripped the paint off, and they just had it painted, repainted white. The one regret I have is that in hindsight, when I stripped the paint down to the natural wood, I really wish I had left it because it lost a lot of the chippy detail when it was painted white like the trim. But anyway, I love it either way. I did leave this vintage doorknob, the black enamel doorknob in this back plate was original, so that stayed. So I really, really love this door and the character that it adds to this space. My favorite area in the home is probably, it's a culmination of several rooms, because my previous home was a ranch style, and all of the rooms were really closed off from one another. I love to entertain and I love to host, and so we would have people over, and as you probably know, everyone wants to gather to the kitchen. Well, my kitchen was small, so we would all be stacked on top of each other. So when we designed this home, we wanted an open floor plan and where it would overflow from the kitchen to the living. And so we did that. So I have a large kitchen that opens to a sitting area that also opens to the back patio, which is where we are. And I have French doors along the whole back of the house from the kitchen through the living room, and we can open all of those French doors and extend that hosting and living area. And it's also enclosed with clear garage doors on the very back of the house. So even in the winter months, if it gets cold, we're in Texas, so it doesn't get super cold, we can close those garage doors, light the fire back here, and open the French doors, and within about 30 minutes, we can heat this area. So that was a big deal to me, to be able to host a large group and have space for everyone. So from the kitchen area, we have the sitting area. And funny story about this, when we designed the house, this was actually where that dining table was in the front. And I had a very small sitting area over on this side of the room, but it could only accommodate 2 chairs because it had to remain a walk-through. So one night, several years ago, my husband and I are sitting here realizing we had this massive dining table in here, and it's just us, so we never used it. So we kind of did fruit basket turnover that night with the furniture, and my dining table landed in the entryway, and my sitting area landed here, and the breakfast table that was in the front room where the big table is landed there, and we were able to buy a sofa and create a full, almost living room in here for a lot of people to sit. We use this every day. My husband and I sit in these chairs every morning and have coffee and discuss our day. And when we have people over, like I had mentioned before, they can sit here and be a part. I can be a part when I'm cooking, entertaining, setting up the buffet, or whatever that may be to get ready for hosting. I can still be part of the conversation, and everybody has a comfortable place to sit here. And the French doors open to an extended living area on the patio. So if we have a lot of people here, we can even open that as well. In this space, I also use the layered rugs that I mentioned in the living room. I love to do a large neutral textured rug that encompasses the whole space, and then a vintage Turkish rug laid on a diagonal in this space. And I just got this rug recently, and I actually took the vintage rug away to see if I like that. And it just really took away something. Something about the layering just adds a neat detail and the character. So that landed back there. And I use a narrow wooden bench that I repainted. It's been with me through several moves as the coffee table, because a large coffee table here didn't work, because this is a pass-through to go to outside. And I wanted to have a place for somebody to have a drink. I also like to decorate it with stacks of coffee table books. So that enabled me to have a coffee table and not impede this walkway. So the furniture pieces in this space, I started out here with just an IKEA love seat that was a slip covered, which I really loved, but it was exactly like this sectional that's behind it in my living area. And I have this thing, I really have this thing for cane. And I found this beautiful antique cane sofa in a resale shop for about $60. It was covered in awful burgundy velvet, these cushions. So I found just a white duck cloth, took it to an upholsterer, and he recovered the cushions for me. And they can be removed and washed as well. So again, I went with the white so it could be bleached. It gives me a great neutral background to be able to change out the pillows here seasonally, and I just really love this piece. And then the other seating areas in here are a kind of a club chair. It's very comfortable. My husband usually sits in this chair. It's covered with just a drop cloth. I bought it in an antique store very inexpensively a few years ago. And then my chair is a woven that I bought on Facebook Marketplace several years ago. And then I just have an ottoman that a friend made a slipcover for me. And I love the texture that the woven chair adds in here. And it kind of plays off of the woven lampshades over my island, and then some baskets and things I have scattered along the house. The side table is that beautiful light wood that's very much a European look. That was being refinished in the back of an antique store I was at, and I asked them if they would sell it as is, and they did, and I've had it for years, and that's probably my favorite table outside of my large dining table. So the light fixture in this space was the original fixture that I bought for the space, but it did not have the lamp shades. And I was really wanting to change it up recently. I started looking at other light fixtures, but I really still liked this one. So I had the idea to buy a fabric covered lampshades. The problem was I couldn't find any that was a neutral pattern that I liked, and they were all so pricey, and I had to have 6. So I ordered drum shades on Amazon, found a set of clearance pillows at HomeGoods that I loved the fabric, took them apart, and covered those lampshades myself. Very inexpensive fix, did it in an afternoon. So it really changed up the fixture without me going to buy a new fixture. And one other thing I wanted to point out in this space is I like to sit here and read, and there is no floor plug here. Since this was the dining area, we didn't add a floor plug, and I really wanted to have a lamp. So this lamp actually doesn't plug in. It has one of the rechargeable light bulbs that you use, and then it has a remote. So it doesn't produce a lot of light, but it's enough that we can use it here for reading. So that's just a good quick fix if you need a place for a lamp and you don't have an outlet. I think to create an inviting and welcoming home to me is, first of all, surrounding yourself in your home with things that you love, that bring you joy, because I think then that you're going to naturally portray that to others. Like I said, I love to host and entertain, love creating, getting creative and thinking out of the box with ways to create tablescapes and hosting friends and family. I host a lot of the big holidays here, and we'll have family, extended family. So I think just curating your own look in your own space, despite what the trends say, despite what the color of the year is, or what others think you need to do. Because I think at the end of the day, you'll end up finding that the trends will fade. It's not you, it's not your space. And so I think that that's important, is just stay true to yourself and create a space that you love, and others will feel welcome in your home as well. So my tips and tricks for adding character to a new build home are, like I mentioned before, I love to shop for things that have detail, architectural pieces. Like, for example, I bought a fireplace surround from a home teardown in a city nearby to put around our fireplace. It has a lot of architectural detail. We bought some wide board and batten siding that we covered the ceiling of our bedroom, a vaulted ceiling. So things like that added warmth, added character, and just made it a little bit different. I use a neutral palette in my home because I like different styles. I like the cottage style. I like the chippy and vintage, but I also have some elements of traditional. And I love some things that English and French cottage style have, European antique. So because I like those different styles, I've kept my palette neutral because I'm able to marry some of those things and it not look busy or hodgepodge. If I had a lot of styles going on and a lot of color going on, it might be a little crazy looking and not make sense. Okay, so off of the kitchen in the sitting area is my breakfast area. So this is a table that will seat 4 to 6, and it's just a great size if just my daughter and son-in-law are here, or we have friends over. It's a great place like to play a game or play cards. I just recently put this check tablecloth on it. I love check fabrics because that kind of is a detail you'll see a lot in English country or French country design, and I really love both. Typically I don't have a tablecloth on that, and it's just this really beautiful light wood color table. I just thought this was a fun change for the season, and more of this honeysuckle that I cut from the backyard in a thrifted swan vase. And I recently acquired these beautiful cane chairs, Facebook Marketplace. It was a set of 8, and I am having new slip-covered cushions made for those in white, of course. And my china hutch, that also changes out seasonally with a lot of my collections. Right now I have a lot of my white ironstone soup tureens in there. That's something I love to collect. So I have a lot of those in there now. So on the wall in the breakfast area, I changed this out seasonally too. Usually I have a collection of white plates that I hang here, but I found this really cute canvas. It's kind of a wall organizer back last fall, and I ordered it. It's part of the Liz Marie Galvin collection on QVC, and I thought it would be so cute to do at Christmas, like an advent calendar. Well, my life was crazy at Christmas, and I barely got my house decorated, so that didn't happen. So I pulled it out for the spring, and just the gardening thing came to mind. So I have some vintage garden tools, a straw hat, seed packets, gloves. So I just kind of staged it to go with the spring and summer decor. So I may keep it up for fall and change it, or that may come down and the plates or something may go up. But I just thought it was a fun touch for the gardening season. And then I just have these 2 wicker basket trunks that I have stacked here. I'm actually looking for another one to make it a little bit taller, and I'm going to use it in another place. So this is a vintage child's high chair, and I have one of my plants here. It gets great natural light. And then another fun feature, and it's a little unusual for me because it's this turquoisey green. This is a sliding door that closes off my laundry room. I bought this also at the Round Tops Antiques Festival, and the plan was to, of course, paint it white. And when I got it home, I just thought I'm going to lose a lot of that character and detail, like I ended up doing with the arch door in the kitchen. So I completely left it. It has original hardware, even has the hole here where the knob used to be. I didn't even replace that. It has the hinges still on it, and I just left it because I love the character. And even though it's turquoise and I don't ever use color in the house, it's just a fun but subtle pop of color as you're going out the back of my house. This door is on the barn slider, a sliding door, and this goes into my laundry room. And I did some fun elements in here because I figure if I have to do laundry, I might as well enjoy the space. So this sink is actually a European animal trough I bought in South Texas in an antique store, and I had the plumber put this in place of a sink. So I thought that was really fun and different. And then on the ceiling in here, I collected vintage ceiling tins. They came in panels of 2, and luckily I found enough. Some of them were discolored and different colors, but I loved it, and it just added a really fun detail to the ceiling in here. And this shutter is an old vintage shutter, and I loved the detail on that. And I hung that there because when they put the where your washer and dryer attaches and plugs in, it is like right here, and I couldn't stand walking in and seeing that. So my husband mounted this shutter for me, and it would lift right off if we had to get to those attachments. I have some of my plants in here because it's beautiful natural light. And this in my bathroom are the only places that I did the cabinetry a different color. I just decided to go with something a little different and darker. So this is a gray color in here. And then we just used a simple butcher block for the countertop here. And then I have a butler's pantry off of my laundry room that just holds my extra dishes and linens and all the things that I love to entertain with that didn't fit in the hutch in the kitchen. When we were building this home, like I said, we wanted to make sure we had a large open area. And I was a little concerned about that because in my former home that we also built, that's one of the reasons I wanted small, cozy rooms that were not an open floor plan, because in my mind, I thought it was going to be really hard to create cozy spaces if it was a large open area. But when we moved here and we decided we wanted that open area to be able to host and entertain, I was a little concerned about how am I going to make this cozy spaces. But it really just all came together, creating a sitting area off my kitchen. And that probably is my favorite space in the house because people can gather there while I'm cooking in the kitchen and have a morning coffee or a glass of wine in the afternoon and I can still be part of the conversation and the experience with that. So I think that was a fear that I had in the beginning, was making my home cozy because of open spaces. But again, I did gathering spaces, created each space its own, but them all flowing together. And it ended up working with it being a cozy space, and again, all of those rooms having their architectural detail, and it ended up working out. So I'm glad that we decided to go with that. So welcome to my patio. This is another one of the favorite spaces in my house because we love to entertain out here and just sit out here, just my husband and I. So one side is, it's divided into 2 spaces, a dining area and a sitting area. So this is the sitting area, and I have a sofa out here that it's not outdoor furniture. It is a down-filled sofa that is slip covered, which is great because it gets really dusty out here. But as you'll see in a minute, this space is enclosed by clear glass garage doors. So we can keep those closed. It doesn't really get that dirty out here, and it doesn't get rained on or anything. So I'm able to have a real sofa out here, which is great if we want to lay down and watch TV, watch a movie. And then I have this just IKEA oversized club chair with an ottoman for someone who wants to. My husband may sit here, I lay on the sofa, vice versa. And then just in a little extra chair tucked in the corner if we have friends out here. And the fireplace hearth is a bench seat. So we can actually seat a lot of people out of here, although it's not a huge space. And then we have the outdoor fireplace, which actually is a wood burning fireplace. So we use that a lot when the weather is chilly. But I don't like having just that big black hole when we're not using it. It's already warming up here in Texas, so we won't be using the fire anymore. So I recently just put a lot of a collection of terracotta pots and just filled the fireplace with those it just kind of says gardening and spring and summer, and it camouflages the big black box. And then I have this is where I was talking earlier about having architectural detail out here, and I bought this fireplace surround that just has this beautiful carving and detail and all this wonderful chippy paint. I bought this when we were building the house at a tear down in a town that was close by. So this added a really great frame to this outdoor fireplace. And then we do have a TV out here. I hate really having the TV show, but we do use it. But I had this odd gap between here. So for now, I put a collection of my vintage books here just to fill the space. A lot of times I just cut, if I'm doing an event or get together, I may just go in the back and just cut tree branches and just fill this with greenery where you can still see the TV, but it just adds a natural live element. Obviously that doesn't last but a few days, but again, if I'm just hosting something and I want to do it for a day or two, it's a really great filler here. So this is fun to decorate for Christmas and different seasons, but I just thought it was fun to use my vintage books because it's another collection and something that I love. So there's 3 sets of French doors out here. All of those, both sides will open. They open up to my living room and my kitchen and my breakfast area. So we can open all of this, close these doors, heat this space in no time if we need to have this as an extended living area during cold weather. So this side of the patio is the dining area. And again, I don't have to use outdoor furniture out here because it can be protected from the weather. I bought this table fairly recently, well, I guess last year sometime, at a thrift store for $25. It's massive heavy. It was super, super dark. It took forever to strip it, and I thought I wasn't going to finish it. But anyway, I'm so glad that I did. It's actually a drop leaf on all sides. So every side of this table can drop, and it makes a long narrow. So sometimes I have it down all the way. Sometimes I'll leave it up, but I can easily sit 6 people here. We entertain out here a lot. This is where my husband and I like to eat before it gets too hot here in the summertime. This is another fun place. I just like to play with the table centerpiece. So I just have a collection of my terracotta pots, the glass cloches I collect, with just kind of a bird's nest and some seed packets and things to kind of carry out this spring and summer theme. And I have a sink here that's a prep area if we're going to cook or entertain out here. And then I hung some straw hats up again to finish out the summer theme. I'll take those down later and change something out there. I do keep the window up most of the time. And I wanted a lamp out here, back to my love for lamps, but having one with fabric, I thought it's just going to stay so dirty all the time. And unlike the slip covered furniture, I can't wash that. So I took this old lamp, basically the form or the spine, took the fabric off, and so I can have a lamp out here, and then I don't have to worry about the fabric getting dirty. Okay, so I've mentioned several times throughout the home tour that I have all these gardening elements, the cloches, the terracotta pots here on the table, in the fireplace, and the straw gardening hats, and then my little canvas wall hanging. I love to garden, and I just find great joy in growing flowers and things in a cutting garden that I can bring into the home and that I can share with friends and neighbors. So let me show you my cutting garden. That's one of my favorite places outside. So this is my perennial cottage garden. That was one of the things I really wanted in front of my home, was just a very unstructured, unmanicured flower bed. I didn't want shrubs that had to be really trimmed a lot. I just wanted it loose and airy. And so I picked out, when I was designing it with the landscaper, the flowers and things I knew that I wanted, and he placed them, and we just kind of went from there. So most of these things bloom, and so I'm able to just come out here and clip blooms to create bouquets for my house and for friends and family. Everything here is perennial, so it all comes back. Some of it dies off in the winter, but most of it doesn't. A lot of it stays evergreen, so it doesn't look bare out here. So anyway, it's just a really fun place for me. I think it adds a charm to the front of my home. Home to me is all about hosting, entertaining, and gathering. Again, I love having people here. I love when people feel welcome here. And that is, I think, is just the most important thing to me. And that's when it makes my house feel like a home, when I can gather others here and they feel at home as well.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Jen. Welcome to my home in Charleston. Come on in, let me show you around.
Allison Kenworthy, the founder of Homeworthy, and we're now offering a membership plan that gives our supporters early and exclusive access to new videos.
Hi, Homeworthy.
I'm Roz.
You're here at my home in Los Angeles?
Come on in. I can't wait to show you around.
With this membership, we invite you to open more doors, discovering new homes, rooms, and personalities available only to those with the keys to our guest house. You'll be part of a community of people who are just as passionate as you are about interior design. Before today's episode, click the join button below to support all of the storytelling we do on this channel. Our growing community of members help to directly fund more videos so we can capture these extraordinary homes from around the world. So join today to receive early and exclusive access to new Homeworthy videos. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
My name is Jen McDermott, and we are at my home in Charleston, South Carolina. We're about 10 minutes outside of downtown Charleston in an area called West Ashley. So we moved here about 2.5 years ago from a little town in New Jersey. We were about 10 minutes outside of Manhattan. After COVID, unfortunately, we had a few deaths in the family, and my husband had a near-death accident, and we were also quarantined together for weeks on end. He's in the medical field, and so anytime he coughed, he was at home on leave. So we spent a lot of time together. The kids were quarantined at school in their various colleges, and so we just started armchair traveling, and we were obsessed with Zillow. And we thought, you know, if we're gonna move after being here for 28 years, then it better be something that we really, really want. And so we had a very specific list. We of course wanted to be near the ocean, only 10 minutes hopefully. We love to hike, so we wanted to be somewhere near, you know, the hills, and we just decided everything pointed to Charleston. We needed a vibrant cultural city, and we love the history of Charleston, and we'd never even set foot in the state of South Carolina, ironically. And through a friend of a friend, we met a realtor who had moved here about 10 years ago, and she never looked back. She was also from Bergen County, New Jersey, where we were. And we met with her on a weekend in March, flew down here, and she took us all around the different areas outside of Charleston, in Charleston, and then we drove up on this development. It's literally right on the Ashley River. So in 20 minutes by boat, you can be in Charleston and on the Atlantic Ocean. We are 10 minutes from the beach, 10 minutes from the airport. It's just an unbelievable place. And South Carolina, this low country area, is just so charming, and the weather is fantastic. So we picked from a plan, we picked a lot, and that was kind of it. We've never done anything this crazy. Our friends thought we were a little nuts, but we just decided that we wanted a better life, and if, you know, we can spend the next 50 years here. So architecturally, the house is a low country farmhouse look from the outside. Inside, we went very classic country English French. Welcome to my living room. So here we start out as the very open floor plan. It was a bit of a challenge to, put our character and our stamp on it and add architectural interest. So the first thing we did was we added these beams, and even though they look like hand-hewn beams, they're actually veneers. So they're U-shaped beams, they're hollow, and very economical. And so we were able to add this instant architecture that also really, I think, delineates the living room. Because it's hard in an open floor plan to sort of create different spaces that have their own character. Also, by adding this wall of drapery in a wonderful soft linen, really gives you a nice backdrop to the entire space. And also architecturally, we changed, you're given various options in a semi-custom build. You get one paint color, one trim color, one ceiling color, which is very difficult, as you can imagine, for a designer. So I just picked this wonderful Sherwin-Williams Elder White. It has a nice depth to it without going too bright gray like a lot of whites do. And we chose, after we moved in, to paint the fireplace and all the doors and the spindles on the stairs in black. And that instantly draws attention and depth to the space and gives it some architectural value. You know, if these spindles were white, they would just sort of evaporate. So that was a big thing. And then design-wise, you know, the house doesn't have very many walls and it didn't have any built-ins. So I found these two demi-lune cabinets. You know, originally we would love to have built-in bookcases and window seats, but the price would be prohibitive. And in hindsight, I'm so glad we didn't, because these cabinets have so much storage in them that I'm able to just hide everything. I don't have to style everything perfectly. And design-wise in here, the goal was really to get a lot of people in this space and to enjoy it at the same time. So I used these two sofas and two different coffee tables. And what joins the colors is the thread of the yellow and the blues and the reds and the creams. This sofa had another life. We purchased this Brimfield, Massachusetts antique show, and it was a worn out off-white leather. And it worked perfectly in our other house. But here, it just sort of evaporated. And the feet were bun feet, and it was very low with this high ceiling. So she got a facelift. This beautiful cranberry linen. We did the contrast piping in the blue. I changed the seat, which was originally a Chesterfield seat with all the tufting, but it was way too fussy. So we just did a simple bench seat and then did these simple buttons across the bottom and some nail heads to just sort of delineate it. And I'm obsessed with fabrics from the UK, these bespoke fabrics that are small production. So a lot of the pillows, I'm able to bring in those patterns. So this ottoman actually had 9 lives also. I bought this from my first roommate in Manhattan and took it with me everywhere. It has had a couple of different iterations of fabrics. Here we did this nice chunky vintage African mud cloth. And then I did a beautiful tape trim in the same cranberry with some large buttons at the bottom. And I paired it with this antique 1700s cherry French coffee table. You wouldn't think that it would go together, but if you just cleverly mix and match antiques and textiles and texture and scale, they all just sort of work together. This sofa was a bit of a splurge. It is a big space, so we really had to get a big sofa. It was upholstered in this beautiful Susan DeLise stripe fabric, and I had them change the direction on here so that it gives it a really interesting custom look, and it's super comfortable. And I think what makes these two work together also is that they're both fairly traditional, but they both have bench seats, so that kind of gives it a little bit of a consistency. The mantle is not exactly that interesting architecturally. I felt that when I found these lamps at a local antique store, I had to have them. They just scream architectural. They're these beautiful swirled Corinthian columns, and they're very overscale, and pairing two of them together I just thought was such a fabulous look to add instant architecture. So these are what my husband and I call our Archie bunker chairs. They are wonderful swivel rockers, and we sit and read here for hours, watch movies, play games, what have you. I did it in this wonderful bespoke fabric to give it that real grounding, that punch of blue that we needed to sort of balance all of these other patterns and textures. The first step in mixing various fabrics and patterns is you definitely have to pick something that you love. And for me, the hardest part is narrowing down what I love. So I keep a common thread throughout. You'll see as we walk through, ochre yellow is a big common thread that'll be seen in a lot of different spaces. And so in here, you know, we've got the reds, the yellows, the blues, and we balance it with the bits of white, and also very contrasting with the black. That really anchors things. So the biggest change moving to South Carolina is the pace. It's a much slower pace, which is great. It's a little something to get used to when you are from the New York City metropolitan area. It gets a little frustrating sometimes, but then you just, you know, you realize you have to back off and take life a little slower, not so seriously. And the other thing that is, the weather, it is hot. It is hot, 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 and humid. And the first year we were here, we embraced it. We just were out in the sun and the beach every day as much as we could. But then, when you try to get through your day and work and play and house, and it just, you're always carrying a water bottle. It's just so hot. And the bugs are insane. They have these things called the no-see-ums, which are, they are just pretty violent. Okay, now I'll take you over to the dining room. And it's not necessarily a formal dining room by any means. As you know, it's an open floor plan. So in here, I wanted to create a space of its own with its own character. We were lucky enough to bring with us these 2 head antique chairs and the cherry table. And so we were able to splurge a little bit on this custom 8-foot banquette sofa. It's covered in a wonderful Thibaut fabric, so we don't have to worry about stains or bleaching from the window. Because I want everybody just to enjoy their meal, and it's very comfortable. In here, we were lucky enough to have a little bit of a wall space to hang something, and we collected these antique black Asian trays and paired it with another wood Asian sculpture, and just to sort of give the space a little bit of antiquity and some interest and character. And the black also matching the black shades and the back of the black chairs gives it that grounding black connective color that I've woven through the spaces. We love hosting dinners, and I have tons of mismatched casual blue and white transferware and flow blue plates and other little antique ironstone pieces that I love to mix in. I love to set a big table that has lots of character and color, and everything that I have, I use. I don't think anything is precious, and if something breaks, I'll find another one. It's okay. So like in the living room with the large Canton jars that I have, I also bring in some more Asian pieces and pottery. This just says, happiness to me, and I love pulling in greenery from the garden, flowers in the summertime from the garden. We have lots of hydrangeas and gardenias. It's just always great to have natural elements in a space. So I fell in love with this beautiful wooden carved Asian shutter. I actually found it on eBay. It has beautiful gilding in it, and it just says so much. It's just such a great piece of art. One of the things we loved about this open floor plan was, coming in from the front door, from the big front porch, and then having this direct access to the exterior, to the screen porch. I would describe my style as, I guess, overall European country. There's a lot of French and English influences throughout. I have a lot of various collections. I love pattern, I love fabrics, I love mixing the colors and the patterns and the scale. You would definitely know if you're walking into one of the houses that I've designed or my own home that it's always full of character and color. I love decorating my own home. I think it's really my showplace and my calling card. And I'm just obsessed with so many different colors and fabrics and textures and creating comfort for my family and entertaining. And I just always want to have everything perfect. Being a stylist for so many years with the magazines, we tweak every little thing all the time. So it's really a little nutty, but I don't think I could live in just a white box or just a temporary kind of space. It has to really be finished for me and for my family to be able to tolerate me. Here we are on the screen porch. It is such a great space. We can use it year-round. So here we put in, of course, the low country day bed that everybody has down here in the South, and you really do live on it. We take naps on it after we've been gardening. We come out here to read and relax. Of course, my husband had to put a TV in so we could watch football and barbecue. We played lots of lawn games, so it's just a great place to come and relax and get a respite from the heat, humidity, and of course those bugs. So we're a little obsessed with shells. Everywhere we go, from Greece to the Jersey Shore, and of course down here, we are always picking up shells. And some of the shells I just didn't know what to do with, so I started this little project. It's not quite finished yet, but it's a little birdhouse filled with all of the many shells. We just, don't know what to do with them, and we just keep decorating with them, getting a little obsessed. So I created a little area where we could come out and have coffee or drinks or appetizers, and it's a little French bistro table with a marble top. And these are actually original French metal chairs from Paris. And the artwork is some vintage sea fans that I found and framed them in this little shadow box frame with some burlap, kind of bringing, a little bit of the art from inside into the space, but yet it's durable and seasonable. So this is a really cool piece I found at High Point Market. It's a vintage Asian rice box, but the designer who was selling it put a mirror in it, which I thought was so cool, and he had a huge wall of them, but I found one that I liked and found a home for it here. And then of course we mix in a lot of bamboo out here just because it weathers well and it just feels natural. So let me take you out to the back patio. So we created this patio. We haven't even had a chance to use it this year. I was able to find this black slate super discounted because nobody in Charleston wants black slate in the summertime. It's too hot. But for us, it was okay because we have this beautiful 200-year-old live oak tree. And the inspiration for creating this space was really just like the Charleston downtown courtyard backyards, just very kind of formal. Eventually, everything will bloom out. It's filled with hydrangeas and gardenias, peonies, azaleas, and then of course a very typical Charleston must-have is a water fountain. Unfortunately, ours is not running because it's winter. But we have a beautiful set of, teak chairs that will weather very well. These are all from Restoration Hardware, and the seating is all very weather. I can bleach it, I can power wash it. It's super easy to maintain. And it just feels very cozy back here with this brick wall. So one of the wonderful things about our property is that we're tucked in a little cul-de-sac, and we are able to get beautiful river views of the Ashley River. And on different parts of the property you can see more water and little slivers of water, and of course on the second floor you can see the river. It's just beautiful. I did always want to be an interior designer. I originally grew up in North Dakota and very limited on design inspiration. And I left when I was 18 because I was just hell-bent on going to New York City. And I ended up going to FIT, the Fashion Institute of Technology, and studied interior design. I nannied my way through college so that I could pay for it all. I didn't know a soul in New York City, but I managed to get some pretty great connections through the school with some internships. And I ended up working with a very famous interior designer named Matthew Smythe, who I love to death. And then I got another internship, which led me in a completely different direction. I worked for Country Living magazine, a Hearst publication, for 15 years. And that really groomed me for interior design as well, because I worked in the home building and architecture department. And we would build houses every year all over the United States, and it would, be 12 to 15 pages of the magazine. And then also I was in charge of designing lots of kitchens and bathroom renovations. And so I really gained a lot of experience, I think more so than a regular designer would, because we were the press. So we were sent to the kitchen and bath shows, and we would have first peek at new appliances, new plumbing fixtures, things like that, and decide whether or not we like them enough to then show them and feature them in the magazine. It was a really, really great experience. But after 9/11, I kind of decided that I was tired of the commute to New York City. My kids were babies, and it was just really difficult. And I decided to hang my shingle and start my own business. It was very difficult, but the best experience. And I ended up working on Property Brothers HGTV show. I did 3 different episodes for them. And that really is what catapulted my career and kind of got my name out there. So I was doing a lot of work in the tri-state area in New York and Connecticut. So here we are in the kitchen. This is a much smaller little kitchen than we had back in New Jersey, but I much more prefer it because it's so easy to go from task to task, just in this, working triangle. And being that it was a little smaller, we did have to add some extra cabinetry, which I'll show you later. So again, being a semi-custom home, we're kind of given this cabinetry as it is. And so I decided, instead of wrapping the monotonous cabinets all the way around, I said, just don't install those, put them in the garage, and I'll do something with them later. And when we moved in, we built these floating shelves. So we have our cafeware and china all ready to go and grab. The other thing that we did to sort of customize it without any expense was, on all the white cabinets, we chose a black granite countertop. And on the dark island, we chose the white quartz countertop. So it kind of gives it a custom feel without any kind of an upgraded price. We also changed, once we moved in, lighting fixtures, faucets, different hardware, just because it didn't have the character that we wanted, so we wanted to customize it ourselves. And of course, this backsplash is the piece de resistance. It's this Moroccan handmade zellige tile. And what we were given with the plan was the simple white, subway tile. And this was another connective color, like I was mentioning before, in each space. This ochre yellow makes its presence, and sort of then, when you're looking at the space as a whole, you've got these connective colors that really make it cohesive. So, being an open floor plan, I didn't really want just this utilitarian kitchen. I really wanted it to feel decorated like the rest of the house. So one of the ways to add, a bit of country antiquity into the kitchen was, I found this vintage butcher block table. And it's a nice way to extend the island without taking up too much space. And it's a great place for chopping. All of our collection of cookbooks are here. And it was actually rather small. So when we bought it, it didn't have these legs on it, but we put these custom wheels to match the maple, and it brought it up to the proper countertop height. This is the cutest little cow. She has been with us for many years, probably 28 years. And so we brought her from New Jersey, and she found a home right here by the range. So every once in a while, you'll find some rings hanging off of her horns. When we're cooking and getting messy, we sometimes just take them off and put them up there, and hopefully they never drop into the pasta sauce. I added this beautiful piece of artwork just to give it, more of a lived-in space, not so utilitarian. It adds a lot of color. It's a beautiful painting of pomegranates, and it's actually so strange. My dentist, when I was a child back in North Dakota, his son turned out to be a really famous New York City artist. And at the time when I was in college, all I could afford was this tiny little painting, but now I think it's quite valuable. So like in a lot of English country kitchens, you see individual cabinets that house china. And not that this is a formal dining room, but we did kind of want a piece that was also a continuation of the kitchen, and we have so much various pottery that we needed more space. So I found this reproduction French glass cabinet. So even though these little reproduction Staffordshire dogs are not antique or anything, but they're the cutest little salt and pepper shakers, and I think it goes quite well with all of the various English and Asian pieces that I have going on in here. I love collecting egg cups, and they are just so gorgeous. And And you can use them in either direction. I have quite a few of these. I love various gravy boats. This is a flow blue one. And as I said, I love to experiment with cooking, and this is actually a tagine. And I've made a few different stews in it. It's pretty cool. You have to heat it up quite a bit so that it can make its own kind of convection oven of sorts, and it just makes beautiful stews. So in most of the kitchens that I design, one of my signature things is to create a cool pantry door. In our home back in New Jersey, it was a Victorian door that I had painted, Victorian screen door that I had painted red. This house, being semi-custom, came with just the plain door, which I did paint black, but then my husband and I were like, it's just not special enough. So I found this really cool company online called Rustica. And this is a solid metal door with the fluted glass. And then I put in a fun satin brass knurled hardware to kind of mimic the knurling on the faucet. What makes a house come alive is the people and the personality that you display. We have a lot of various collections. Everything has a story. I love mixing old and new, and I think that gives it a lot of comfortability for people so that nothing is perfect. You're not afraid to put a glass down on the coffee table because there's already many stains on it. Most fabrics are treated these days, so there's no worry that way. Everybody seems to have a dog, so people come with their pets and we all just hang out. It's the love of the family that comes through the personality of the design. So here we are in the mudroom, which I don't even know if we really should be calling it a mudroom. I don't know what to call it because it is so multifunctional. When it was first built, semi-custom again, all it came with was this drop zone, which was painted in white. And then over here were just plugs for the washer and dryer. And we really needed a lot more out of this space. So I ended up maxing it out by building in the washer and dryer and using the same absolute black countertop as the kitchen to make it flow as if it were one space. And those missing cabinets from the kitchen I put here to house all the detergents and beach towels. And then of course the drop zone is just great, filled with all the things for the dogs, the beach, garden shoes, what have you. And we also needed a bar. So I was able to build these cabinets to look just like the kitchen cabinets. And we added a wine fridge, we added an ice maker. So we have a little section over here that's for the bar, and then we have a coffee bar over here. And I found this piece on King Street, downtown Charleston, at a place called E2. It's a European store. And like they do in Europe, a lot of the kitchens are very modular. So this piece, although it is very large, it's a black metal cabinet, but it has all glass sides, so it's not so imposing. So it holds all of our various glassware and some silver that we've collected. One of the quirky fun things in this space is, like most of the kitchens I design, I always do some sort of cork board, chalkboard area. And this one has a dual purpose because it cleverly comes right off and covers all of the Wi-Fi and connectivity of the house. So why somebody would put that right in that spot, I don't know, but I found a way to cover it up. So I know it's not very typical to put a lamp in a kitchen, but I love that. This was in our kitchen in New Jersey, and I just think it adds a lot of ambiance to the space. And my husband and I joke, when the lamp is on, that means it's cocktail hour. This artwork collection came from our house in New Jersey. It nods to where we lived off the Hudson River. And here, of course, sailing is huge. But what's great about this map, it's an old map from 1776, and it actually is exactly where we lived on the Hudson River before it was all developed. And one of the things that I think is a way to make this space classy enough and interesting enough to stand on its own, because you are seeing the whole house. You see, when you walk in the front door, you see this room. You don't want it to look like a dirty laundry room or what have you. So that's why everything is very built in and strategically placed, and it looks like a continuation of the kitchen. And so another way to jazz it up was to put this wallpaper on the ceiling. So it gives the room a lot of space, a lot of character. This is a beautiful hand-blocked print from the UK. And it kind of looks like tile, which I think is kind of cool. And it has a lot of pattern, just like the rest of the living room and the rest of the house. The thing we love most about this home is the open floor plan. Coming from a Dutch colonial 1930s home, everything's very compartmentalized, and the ceilings were very low, and everything was very delineated by walls. And here it's just a large open plan. The windows are huge, the light is amazing. There are hardly any walls, so we did have to cut down on a lot of artwork. And there is a challenge of, kind of delineating the spaces with an open floor plan. But it's just great to be in a space that just feels so open. And the ceilings are 10 feet high, so it's just such a great space. So here we are in the primary suite. This we call the Wall of Shame, lovingly. It is all the photos of our relatives, our grandparents, our parents, us as babies, my babies. It also hung in New Jersey. I hate to say it again, but on the stairwell we had lots of walls. And I just love having my family around me. What we love about our bedroom is that it's very open and cozy, a little devoid of color, which is unnatural for me, but it just has a very calming feel, which is what we all want. It started with this rug. This is an antique rug that I found in High Point again. And it really grounds the space and gives me lots of jumping off points to other fabrics. And it really gives the space a bit of antiquity, which it needs, so that it doesn't look brand new. So we always wanted a 4-poster bed. I just love them. They give you so much architecture, and it really brings your eye up to the ceiling, and it fills up the large space. In our old home, the ceilings were 8 feet, so it was impossible to have this kind of a look. I was lucky enough to find this one on sale. It was originally covered in a gray fabric, but given the price, I knew I could customize it on my own. So we started off with doing the side rails and the end rail in just a simple linen fabric that matches the swivel chairs. And then I customized it with this beautiful Indian flower fabric, another bespoke fabric, on the headboard with some shiny brass nails. And to make this a continuous kind of backdrop, I did the same fabric in the Roman shades. So here I mixed, you can see the various different colors and stripes, this beautiful striped fabric from Peter Fasano, and mixing it up with a wonderful little paisley, and adding a pop of blue with the lamp, and otherwise keeping everything else very off-white and creamy colors, just to simplify it and make it very soft in feeling. So another way to add some architectural interest and some character to this space is this beautiful beaded chandelier. It's from Visual Comfort. It just really sets the space off and just looks magnificent. It's also pretty gigantic, as is the mirror behind me, and also adds a lot of character, being this Regency carved gilded mirror. But I think this is one of the examples of properly playing with scale and pattern. As long as you have, a few pieces that talk to each other, then you're able to get that balance to work together. So I always dreamed about having a huge bedroom that actually was able to accommodate chairs at the end of the bed. I just love that look. And it actually is really awesome. We sit in the chairs, of course, to put shoes on and things like that, but we also watch TV here. It does house some laundry. But one of the fun things I did here is the chair came with the same pillow that matched the linen. But I found this beautiful crewel work from Schumacher and just kind of blew the budget a little bit and had these really huge pillows made for the chairs, which I think make them look really spectacular. And they also speak to the backdrop of all these patterns and fabric colors. So this is our primary bathroom. Again, talking about semi-custom homes, a way to make it look more custom. We were, in the plan, this was double vanity. We were able to choose the color and the faucets, the plumbing, and the hardware. The flooring choices were a little bit limited, so we just kind of went with a simple faux marble look all the way through to the shower, just to keep it kind of monochromatic. We added these tiles because we really needed some color in the space, and this beautiful aqua really speaks to the bedroom colors as well. And then I added these three beautiful Moroccan-shaped black iron mirrors to give the space some character and some wow. And then we added a black glass cabinet for the overflow of towels and some of our other collections. Home means love to me. I feel like when I have anybody over and we're entertaining, we're using plates and things that we've collected that have stories to them. We're all laughing, we're telling stories. We're just comfortable. We love to just relax and play games and have drinks and, do outdoor games, especially here in the Low Country. And it's just, I want everybody to feel comfortable and loved when they come to our home.
Hello, Homeworthy, and welcome to my family home in India. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hello, I'm Peter Doscoli, a New York designer, and I've lived in India with my wife and daughters for many years. So we're sitting in our home in Delhi. I always, ever since I was a young boy, have been very attracted to color, graphics, and ever since I can remember, I've been drawing and painting. And really it was my love for art that led me to study textile design. I sort of stumbled into the fashion world just through my love of graphics and color. I studied textile design at the Fashion Institute of Technology in Manhattan, and then in the summer before my senior year, I had a job with a menswear designer, and they sent me to Delhi. So that was my first trip 40 years ago. I was 20 years old, and on that trip, of course, it was an exciting adventure. I was just struck by the art and the beauty of this ancient civilization. It was on that trip that I met some officials working for the Indian government in the Ministry of Textiles, and I later learned that textiles and handicrafts, handmade textiles, are hugely important in India because there are literally millions and tens of millions, perhaps hundreds of millions of people who get their livelihood from artisanal fabrics. So I was invited by the government. They said, go back to New York, finish your last year at FIT, and then come and work for us. So I did that, and I ended up working for 2 years for the Indian government, which was my very first job. And I've never recovered from the shock and awe of the beauty of this amazing civilization. Here we are in what we can call the atrium of the house. It's a double height space with a skylight at the top, and you can see these panels that line the upper wall. It's printed linen that's been hand embroidered, and we designed these in our workshops here in India. I love the idea of living in a cabinet of curiosity filled with mementos, memorabilia, natural history items, of course also family pictures, lots of books, so we can see artifacts all around the house. Let's walk to the living room now. In the living room, of course, you see this very strong color on the wall. India is all about color, and I think covering the wall with so much art, it's nice to have a strong background. All of the art here, it's a little bit high-low. There's nothing very precious, and really they're mementos and memorabilia that our family has collected from all around the world. There are a lot of tiles from Turkey, from Italy, from the south of Spain, even from China and Amalfi, where my family comes from in Italy. Also on the wall, as I said, it's a mix of a variety of things. We have some artwork from the children. So my daughter painted this camel. Of course, living in India, lots of camels. There are some miniatures of Mughal engravings that are hand-colored, a gouache from the Bay of Naples, near where my family set sail for the New World of New York. So it's a very rich, here's some painted porcelain tiles from China that I found in Shanghai. Some antique French chintz fabric. Of course, with our work in textiles, we're always working with antique fabrics. The banquettes are covered in velvet. And then we have this furniture from our upholstered furniture collection that we hand make here in India. And it's printed linen, and the print, as you can see, it's inspired by the amazing Kashmiri shawls that come, the paisley shawls of the Valley of Kashmir. The Mughals loved florals and loved rendering and weaving and printing floral motifs, often very stylized. Here on this sofa, we have a paisley shawl, a Jamava shawl, and it was a gift from a friend, and it adds to this sort of maximalist mix of patterns, of colors, of just sort of surrounding ourselves with the things that we love. This coffee table I found on the 26th Street Flea Market in Manhattan. There were a number of years where this parking lot on 6th Avenue and 26th Street was filled with dealers, and there were treasures coming from China. So this table, as you can see, the drawers go on both sides. And it's this beautiful coffee table, lacquered with some nice details on the drawers. The fabric on the windows is printed linen, again from our studio. And there are some antique textiles. A very traditional treatment in decoration in India are shamyanas, or tents. So you can see this interesting fabrics tenting the ceilings. We are often inspired by traditional textiles, and in India, once again, the inspiration from Kashmiri shawls and Kashmiri hand-painted paper mache. One of the challenges, or we can say the art of being a maximalist, is knowing how to create a melange or a mix of many different textures, colors, and patterns, and still have it work. And that's the art, that's the trick. You can make mistakes and things can clash. Sometimes clashing is nice, but, and it's hard to say how to do it. It's something that maybe it's instinctual or cultivated, but everything has a harmony. It holds together as a complete look, but it really is quite a broad range of influences. Again, part of the mix of objects and patterns, we can see here a bunch of Chinese figures. When I was traveling constantly all around the world to source fabrics, I found some interesting things in China. And of course, one of the inspirations is really this centuries old, even millennium old tradition of the Silk Route and this mixing of cultures that happened all the way from Japan and China straight through Central Asia, India being a huge part of that, and then ending in the Levant, in Aleppo and in present-day Syria, right up through Turkey to Europe. And much of our European idea of decoration comes from an amalgam of all of these influences. So we have China playing a strong part in my idea of decoration. Of course, we know the style of chinoiserie, which is a European sort of fantasy and idea of what the exotic East is. And that's part of what we enjoy recreating here in our home. Also on the table are these two glass lamps that I found in a flea market in East Hampton, out on Long Island. And the shades, these red shades, were made at Gracious Homes, which is a big decoration store on the Upper East Side. So being so far away from home, these are sort of links back to, if we do start to feel homesick, where we come from. The peacock feathers, part of the richness of the natural biodiversity in India, we have at Lal Koti wild peacocks. We hear them singing at night or as the sun rises and sets. And these feathers are feathers that we've found in the yard and collected over the years. And now if we walk over to this side of the living room, we can see, again, more tiles. These I found in an antique shop in Shanghai. There are also many sort of grand tour photographs from the late 19th and then the early 20th century of Italy, hand-colored. Here you can see, this is a fascinating object. It's a fly whisk, a traditional fly whisk we found in Calcutta last Christmas, and it's made of horsehair, and this would traditionally have been used to keep the flies away. The bar, if we get homesick, here's a painting of the Adirondack Mountains, and it's interesting in India, of course, entertaining, especially in North India. People love to party, they love to be social, and we see some social changes happening in the culture. The older generation has grown up drinking a lot of whiskey and I guess not unlike in the US. And the younger generation now, there's the whole world of wine opening up. There are wine makers in India, and wine and beer for the younger generation is often had. Some tribal paintings, the Whirly paintings of India. Every room in India needs to have air conditioning, and it's always sort of unsightly. Most of the homes don't have central heating or air conditioning, so we have what are called splits. They're units that stick on the wall, and here we've created these what are called jali patterns. They're traditional Islamic, and this is a cut wood, pierced wood screen that we've created to mask that unsightly air conditioning. Lal Koti is the name of this home, and a koti is a small house in Hindi, and Lal means red, so it's really the red house. And it's made of red sandstone, which is a very famous stone for building in North India. There's the famous Red Fort, the Jama Masjid, in the old city. So red sandstone, but the actual architecture is very modern. It's by a member of this very large extended royal family, and he's a practicing architect in Holland. He's a Dutch architect. So the house was created In the 1980s, it was built, and it's a very interesting use of the earth. They move it around, they create depressions and hills so that the front door is on the ground level, but it's raised, and then you come down some steps, and you're again on the ground level on this backside of the house. And there's a beautiful fountain in the garden that's part of the family's heritage, and the fountain comes from a palace in the Punjab. So it's a heritage piece, probably from the 19th century, and it's bubbling away in the front garden, and that again it's bringing back this rich history of the art and culture of India. So the Red House, Lal Koti, as a farmhouse here in Delhi. I think mentally life can be hard, and when our surroundings comfort us or reinforce certain values, I really believe that inanimate objects can do that. So the home we see here is really filled with objects that have meaning for us and comfort us daily. And perhaps we can proceed to the dining room, which is set for dinner. You know, I think it was Diana Vreeland who's talked about hot pink being the navy blue of India. So we thought to have a pink dining room, but it's not just straight pink, it's really pink mixing with red. Here you can see these dramatic tree of life panels that we've printed at our workshop here in India. And the table laid for dinner. Dishes are interesting. They're spode, and it's a reproduction of an earlier spode pattern, which was made in the 19th century. Of course, the table linens come from Dascoli, our brand. The richness of Indian craft, the embroidery, the block printing, hand weaving is what brought us originally to India, and it animates the fabrics that we create. And here again we see on the ceiling the shamiana, that tented treatment. And so all of these patterns are inspired by traditional Indian textiles. Delhi being the capital of India, all of the embassies are here, and we end up becoming friends with many ambassadors and people who work in the embassies. So a typical dinner party could feature close Indian friends, some ambassadors, some people from the UN, maybe UNESCO, which we work with UNESCO with our textile revival work. And maybe from the kitchen, we might decide to serve either traditional Indian food with chapatis, the hot bread, with curries. Of course, when entertaining in India, you always have to know your guests, or at least ask them before they come if there are any dietary restrictions. So many people in India are vegetarians, and even there can be strict vegetarians without even garlic or onions. So it can be complicated. So what you're serving, and it can be quite diverse. We also love serving Italian food, pastas, and that's always a good solution for vegetarians as well. You can make great vegetable pastas. Having a sit-down dinner is often a challenge in Delhi because people are they're unruly. They do what they want. They come and they go. They'll come late. They'll leave. Maybe they have 2 other parties to go to in the evening. So you have to know your guests. And if you're planning a sit-down dinner, your guests need to know that it's a sit-down dinner that's timed. Also, a little bit like Spain, in North India, in Delhi, people eat very late. Also, another interesting sort of thing that happens is at a party, you'll arrive at a party, You'll have amazing snacks, that what are called snacks, but they're hot foods, oftentimes veg, non-veg, while you're drinking. And it can go on for 2 or 3 hours of people socializing, nibbling, having finger foods. And then towards the end of the evening, the host will serve dinner. And then people eat and they say goodbye and go home, which is sort of a funny thing for me to have experienced and learned about. And dinner gets served so late that my wife and I ended up, we would eat before we would go out. And then I could never resist the delicious food that's served at like 11 o'clock at night. So I would end up having 2 dinners every time we would go out. But so those are some of the interesting things you learn about that are the cultural differences when you live in a different culture. When I came as a young man to work for the Indian government, it was at a moment when the government of India was projecting its culture and we can say soft power through a series of major museum exhibitions at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, at the Cooper Hewitt and the Smithsonian in Manhattan, in Washington, at the Louvre in Paris, at the Victoria and Albert Museum, and other museums also in St. Petersburg. It was called the Festival of India, and many curators and designers were enlisted to work on craft development for these exhibitions. And that's the world that I fell into. All those years ago, when I first came to India, I had the great good fortune of working with someone who was one of the major craft revivalists and people working with handmade textiles. His name was Martin Singh, and he was a prince from the royal house of Kapurthala in Punjab. And this family of whom my family and I stay in this house, Lal Koti, belongs to that family. And so there's a wonderful connection there with me personally, with someone who I consider like my guru. And this house is a farmhouse in South Delhi. And anyone who knows India knows that it can be very intense. It can be a very crowded place. The population is huge. And Delhi, I think, is a city with 27 million people in the whole metro area. So it's a very intense place to live. And living here at Lal Koti, it's like a sanctuary and a bit of countryside within the city of Delhi. So we have a wonderful garden, we have a great swimming pool, and we have a mango orchard in the back of the house. And that's how we came to be in this house, through these long-standing connections with this family. And now let's go to the TV room. All good American households have to have a TV room. And ours is a little bit special. Being here in India, of course, we love color. And here another strong yellow color on the walls. Once again, in keeping with that sort of maximalist theme, a little bit calmer here. We have a couple of nature studies, paintings of birds that a dear friend made. Some oriental decoration, these Chinese panels hanging on either side. Of course, symmetry is very important to me as a designer. The television, of course, and then this amazing tanka we found in Nepal, in Kathmandu. And it has I think 367 images of Buddha. And it's linked, I think that's the number, and the number is linked with some mystical belief in that faith. And that's pretty much it here. More family photos. The textiles on the sofa are interesting. It's once again from our studio. Hand-printed silk satin on these bolsters with a chenille velvet and a printed linen with some velvet stripe. The flowers come from the local flower market, which would be another interesting tour for us to make. It's the wholesale market. We go very early in the morning, and it's quite a scene. It's a big bustling place, and they're selling both cut flowers the way we know them for people to use in their homes, but that's really the smaller part of what the market is selling. They're also selling marigold and other lotus flowers and significant flowers that are tied to worship and the temples and offerings made to the deities. So it's always a very interesting place to visit. And as we head to the downstairs guest bedroom, we're passing through this sort of entrance area with these cabinets that are upholstered in printed cotton from our office, and this beautiful Bessarabian carpet on the floor. Bessarabians are from Eastern Europe, and it's a flat weave, so it's like a kilim weave. And they're always characterized by having large floral motifs. So we're in the downstairs guest room, and as you can see, again, some artwork on the walls. These are some original drawings from the École des Beaux-Arts, the architecture school in Paris. Another gouache of the Bay of Naples, those architectural renderings. And then we see more of those 19th century grand tour photographs, this time of Venice, hand-colored in some very beautiful frames. And then here along this wall above the headboards are a series of watercolor illustrations that I had done after I met Cécile. And we have an interesting story. We met in India. We were both here on business trips. Cécile's family was also in textiles. And we met in Delhi. A friend introduced us. And the very next day after meeting, we went, Cécile had booked and was scheduled to go alone to Agra to visit the Taj Mahal. And I canceled my meetings for that day, and we went together. And the driver thought we were on our honeymoon because it's such a typical destination for newlyweds. And that's how sort of we had a very intense meeting, just 2 days, and then Cécile flew back to Paris. Shortly after that, she came to visit me in New York. I tried to dazzle her with the beauty of Manhattan. We went to the Rainbow Room in Rockefeller Center so that I could show her all of Manhattan over martinis. And then I went to visit her in Paris, and she brought me to a party with her friends, and everyone was coming up to me saying, you're that Indian guy. Because all they knew was that Cécile had gone to India and met some guy. So I'm that Indian guy. And then the rest is history. We embarked upon a year of what I call living dangerously. We would meet in exotic locales in Como in Italy, in Marrakesh, and it was quite an intense year. And then we were married, and I jokingly say, Cécile married me thinking she was getting Manhattan, and she got Delhi, because then my plans changed with work, and she agreed. She loves India, and of course that's now old history and happily ever after and all of that. The watercolors are, it's a bit of a story, and actually Cécile already had a daughter, Clara, and this was and she was only 4 years old. And this was actually a story to Clara, explaining how her mother and I had met. We shifted to this house in the first lockdown during COVID, and living here, it's really the peace and quiet. India is a remarkable place for nature. It's one of the richest countries in the world for biodiversity. And the birds that are at this home, we have wild peacocks that we hear in the night, in the morning at dawn. The birds are really astonishing. There's a lot of fruit trees. So even though we're in the city of Delhi, it's the nature and the peace and the quiet that we most love. It's like a little sanctuary in the city. My wife and I, despite the fact that I'm an American from New York, I've been abroad for so many years. And my family is of Italian origins, and my wife's family also is very Mediterranean. She's French, and her family also comes from Istanbul, Turkey. And being European and Mediterranean is very much a part of our identity. So living in this home, it's really the accumulation of objects over our lifetimes, and each object sort of tells a story about a place, about a moment in time. And you know, this arc of education in any individual life is something that's very important. If you're curious, if you're always learning. And for me and my life, I wasn't really born with a huge exposure to aesthetics and art, and it's something that I really had to learn over many years. So it's my studies in decorative arts, in European art, and in the arts of many diverse cultures from all over the world that informs the decoration of this house. I mean, I'm a designer, and I design textiles and products for interior decoration and fashion. So it sort of makes sense that our home would be a manifestation of those aesthetics that we love as a family and that are important to me. I think there are a few important inspirations in my life aesthetically. There are a couple of major designers. Renzo Mongiardino was an Italian set designer, costume designer, and created amazing ambiances and interiors for his clients. And then a woman in Paris named Madeleine Castin. So these were two huge influences on me aesthetically, and sort of we can see traces of their style in this house. And then, of course, one tries to develop one's own point of view. So really, it's the artifacts, and I believe that, you know, creating a home, you should have things that are familiar and meaningful to you. Even if you're working with a professional designer, I think it's important to have that communication back and forth, and a good designer is going to create an environment for you that touches you personally. Shall we go and explore upstairs? On the stairs leading to the mezzanine section, we have some artifacts here. This beloved, one of my heroes is TR, Theodore Roosevelt, and his philosophy of life and engaging, and a life of doing and action. So that's a bronze I found again out in a junk shop in East Hampton. These are some Chinese funeral stone sculptures. And then again, this idea of things that are new but are reproductions. This is the head of a Roman boy from the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And then this is a very heavy marble head of Alexander the Great that we found in the Archaeological Museum in Istanbul and lugged it all the way back. Then here are 3 panels, printed raw silk, hand woven, with some hand embroidery in, of course, a Greek theme. And in our work, we're always using antique documents, history, and books are very important. So there's a small library here of reference books. Books on interiors, books on all the major textile collections in the Victoria and Albert, the Museum of Decorative Arts. in Paris, and a variety of inspirations. On the floor, we have an interesting Samarkand carpet from Central Asia. And this, you can see, it looks very oriental. And the chairs are covered in a jacquard that I did many years ago when I was in New York. It's woven in Como, in Italy. So here we are in the mezzanine above that double height atrium area with the embroidered panels surrounding. And this is the master bedroom. Let's have a look. And for the master bedroom, the idea was to create like a cocoon wrapped in fabric. As you can see, the idea, which is a traditional French decorative treatment, is to take one fabric and cover all the walls, sometimes even the ceiling. Here, the ceiling is not covered. But you can see we took this very complex striped fabric that we created in the studio and covered the walls. We put this little molding around at the ceiling level, just below. We printed that engineered border to follow that wood, and then beneath it we draped the fabric. So it creates a wonderfully warm feeling that you really feel like you're, I mean, it's a fairly big room, but you sort of feel like you're in a boat or in a tent with all of the fabric surrounding you. And it's a mix of Indian-inspired, but also European, with the classic florals, the very realistic floral stripe, mixing with that very small stripe, and then with this paisley print. Obviously, taste is completely up to the individual, and some people are devoted to minimalism, and I get it. I understand that aesthetic. It's pure simplicity, and you can say that it reflects your mind also, a simplicity of mind or spirit. I love the excitement of decoration, of pattern, and for me, I'd rather be in a stimulating environment with interesting shapes and forms and colors rather than a simply bare space. But I understand it, I get it, and I can get into simplicity as well. Of course, with simplicity, the bones of the space become even more important. So maybe if you have some monumental architecture or the integrity of the raw materials, whether it's stone or wood, then minimalism is possible. Here, with maximalism or with lots of things happening decoratively, it can cover a lot of shortcomings in a space. And there are many shortcomings in this home. But so those are my feelings about simplicity, minimalism, and maximalism. But in the end, I love the excitement of the association also of motifs. It's like a trigger of history for the imagination. I love history. I love reading history. And for me, the history of decorative arts, of civilization itself, of how humans have created over the thousands of years layers of culture. For me, that's interesting. And that's why I love India so much, and why my work with decorative arts and textiles keeps me enthused, because it's always a discovery. And I'm not the type of designer that's trying to create something that you look at it and you think, I've never seen that before. I love the idea of the links with history and progression and an incremental change. I guess I'm sort of conservative in that way. An interesting anecdote about this rug is I was working in Manhattan, right on Madison Square Park on 26th Street, and I left the office to go for lunch, I think, and there was a man standing on the sidewalk looking a little nervous, and he had rolled up a carpet, and I did a double take because I'm always interested in carpets. And he asked me if I wanted to buy the carpet. And I said, no, you know, someone in New York City, you don't want to really engage. And then he said, it's just $200. And I said, I would love to. He showed it to me. It looked very beautiful. And I said, I don't have $200. He said, there's an ATM right there. So I went and got it and I bought it. And then years later, I brought it to be cleaned. This is the carpet here in India with 3 other Afghani carpets. And the dealer who was doing the cleaning for me asked if I would sell this. And he said it's a special carpet. So I was very pleased about that. And I always wondered about that man, who he was, why he needed the money so badly. And that's the anecdote about this carpet. These stools are covered in a beautiful silk satin that's dyed red, and then it's hand embroidered. So the fineness of this embroidery is quite remarkable, and it's a nice accent to the blue bed and the canopies. So here we are in the front garden at Lal Koti. And really, this is Rani Saab's property. It's her garden. She's planted all of these amazing trees. We have fruit trees, a mango orchard in the back, which we'll see in a little bit. And this fountain from one of the palaces of the family in Punjab. And it's just a delight to be here. It's like a sanctuary in the intense city of New Delhi. So we have a great variety of trees, and we have gardeners who take care of it. As you can see, the maintenance is quite strenuous. And well, some of them are flowers, some of them are fruit trees, these exotic palm trees. For me, it's just a delight. The birds that come and sing, we have the wild peacocks, and this glorious fountain. Sometimes we entertain, we set tables on the lawn. Of course, in winter, it's an amazing place to sit in the sun. And this remarkable house. The house is made of the very traditional material of red sandstone, which in North India, many of the monuments are made, the great forts and tombs of the Mughals, certainly. Of course, the Taj Mahal is white marble, but other than that, red sandstone really is used quite a bit. And this depression, it's almost like an amphitheater, as you can see, with steps on on 3 sides, the front, which is the north, the west, and the east. So this is the front yard of Lal Koti. It's a sanctuary here. We have that front garden with the fountain, the house, a swimming pool behind this hedge, and then what's like a remarkable country road in the city of New Delhi, and a mango orchard on the other side of this hedge. Sometimes we can set a table amidst the trees and have lunch, so let's go check that out. So here we are at the mango orchard at Lal Koti. I always think it's a little bit like an enchanted garden, and in the heat of the day, to be beneath the trees, this cluster of fruit trees here, we have a table set for lunch. It's just a fantasy. You know, mangoes in India hold a very special place in the culture. I think there's something like 32 different varieties. And growing up on Long Island in New York, we don't know anything about mangoes. Here, there are the specialists, both the growers and the consumers. Some mangoes are soft and juicy and sweet, and some are firm and sour and katak. And sometimes they're cooked, a lot of times they're eaten raw. And it's fascinating. Once I was at a dinner at a friend's home in Gujarat, and they served this amazing mango puree, and it was just this light, fluffy orange delight. So here we are in the mango orchard. The table is set with one of our new table linen collections. The tablecloth, of course, this is a chinoiserie theme based on the Orient and China. The tablecloth is printed linen, a design made of pagodas and different cherry blossoms. The placemats are a traditional Chinese geometric pattern, and we have some hand embroidery. Of course, the crafts of India are super famous and quite diverse, and these are hand embroidered with these knots, creating the center of the flowers. And this napkin, all of our napkins, and in fact our cotton dresses, are made of hand-spun, hand-woven cotton. And it's remarkable. I call them like a cultural artifact, because this cotton is grown on small family farms in India, and then the plant is spun by hand and then woven by hand. So it's really like a pre-industrial agrarian ecosystem that these products come out of. And I'm always talking about the sustainability of Indian craft and how much India can offer the world regarding the fashion industry. The dishes are Wedgwood, and it's another story behind these. It's a pattern that when Napoleon was defeated by Britain and exiled to the island of St. Helena, he ate from these Wedgwood plates of this pattern. So this is called Napoleon ivy. And it's quite a sort of historic setting. And here we are in the mango orchard. What does home mean to me? You know, my parents, my grandparents left southern Italy and came to New York. It's that classic immigrant story, being processed through Ellis Island and settling in Brooklyn. My wife's family are Sephardic Jews who, of course, 500 years ago left Spain and were welcomed by the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire in Istanbul. So we're very Mediterranean, but we're also used to, at least our genetics and our family, are used to traveling, and whether it's for economic reasons or political reasons, making a home in a place that is not necessarily your community's home or an environment that you've been in for generations. And we've taken some of that sensibility with us here, settling and living for so many years in India. Firstly, I think to do that, you have to be somewhat secure with your own identity. As an individual and standing, it takes some strength to remain who you are, but it also requires, I think, a love for humanity and for people and a curiosity to learn. So it's not very easy as a foreigner to live in India. As I said, it's such a different culture, and yet our friends that we have here, we've experienced love, friendship, life and the birth of loved ones, the death of loved ones, and this is so, it's this human experience. How do we do it? I think we're very much at home in India, and that requires a certain amount of, I think, mental flexibility, psychological maturity, and also love for people and differences. You know, when I first came to India, It was an adventure. I was excited to be here. And it wasn't until years later that I realized that some people, they come to India and they hate it. That surprised me because the whole idea of wanting to stay where you are in the world that you know, I understand the appeal of that. But to not be curious, to not be open to things, the mystery of life outside of what you know, is something that astonishes me. And I think that's what home for me really ends up being where I am and where, of course, my loved ones are, where my family is. But I want to be open. I want to experience the unknown. I'm comforted by those things that are familiar to me, but the idea of adventure. So where is home? Home for me and for my family, I think, is wherever we happen to be. So New York will always be home. I love America. My wife, and now I'm very much European, and my wife's family is in Paris, and home for us is Paris. We have a beautiful home in Bordeaux and India. Our loved ones are here, our close friends are here. And I think really that says something about the age that we live in, with communications being so easy, that home ends up being really someplace inside. There's that amazing quote that says something about, if you would travel to the Indies to discover the wealth of the Indies, you must bring it with you. And I think that's something very important. I think home for me is something internal, it's interior, with family, but it's something that you carry with you.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Ellen Spraggins, and you are welcome to my home, Bryn Ellen, in Malvern, Pennsylvania. Come on in. I want to show you everything. I'm Ellen Spraggins, and welcome to my home. We call it Bryn Ellen, and the reason for that is that my name Ellen is spelled with a Y, and as you may know, the main line is sprinkled with a million strange spellings with a lot of Y's in them. So a friend of mine said we should name it Bryn Ellen. Bryn means hill in Welsh, and this area was basically settled by a lot of Welsh Quakers. So that's the reason for that. We moved in here in 2015. This is a kind of a farmhouse style that's typical of Chester County, which is where we are in Pennsylvania. It's not truly a farmhouse, but it was styled that way when it was built in 1967. And it's notable from the outside for the stonework, and also in another room you'll see later, a beautiful giant kind of stone fireplace. That's the reason we call that room the cozy room. We found the house a little dark, and so we had a major renovation done by Gardner Fox. And you'll see a lot of evidence of that as I take you through. They did some wonderful things that has made the house full of light and really, really pretty now. This is my foyer. It's quite small. And so to try and help with that, we put in a gigantic mirror that makes it look like it's a little bit bigger, and a very small table with a light in it, because it's also not the lightest room. Also, I don't know if you can see this, but this wallpaper is a grass cloth, but it's backed with a metallic kind of material, so it has a little sheen to it when there's artificial light on it. But if we open the door, it just looks like a regular grass cloth, very natural looking. We wanted to sort of elevate this space a little bit, so we decided to put this originally was a banister with just black on the top and white balusters, but I really like the graphic effect of the black, and it's a fine paint of Europe, which is, of course, super glossy and super pretty. So that's our decisions and kind of really what we did in here. There's not that much space to do much more. But let's go into the green room. There's a lot more to talk about there. Here we are in the green room. I wonder if you can guess why we call it the green room. So in this room, one of the greatest things that happened with our renovation is Gardner Fox designed this beautiful coffered ceiling. I wanted a coffered ceiling, but we have 8-foot ceilings, so they couldn't be very deep. And I also wanted them to be sort of more modern and fresh looking than typical coffered ceilings. So I asked them to do very large diamond shapes on the ceiling. And so they did, and people always notice this and comment on it. And then to carry through the theme on the fireplace surround, they did these wonderful diamonds with the circles in the corners, and they are appliques, wooden pieces that are glued here and then painted. And it's very unusual. I think it's really gorgeous and, again, kind of fresh and modern. The other thing that I love in this room, speaking to fun and fresh, are my busts. So this is Monsieur Lapin. If you can believe it, these guys came from France and his ears were intact. So you can imagine how much stuffing and everything else surrounded him. And then on the other side here we have Professor Eccles. Eccles is my middle name. I think he's very impressive. This artist is a French plaster artist, and she obviously dresses them in 18th century attire, and sometimes she has entire figures made of them. I have the woman that owns the store that I bought these at in Philadelphia has one like about this size, just standing like a sentry in her living room. This is a piece of art that really is kind of a nod to horse country, which is where we are. We have a lot of open space in Chester County and tons of equestrians. I am not an equestrian, but this piece really is a nod to all of that in the area, but also it's beautiful because it's almost abstract. You only see the hair and the eyes, and then I also love the title of it, which is Blonde. So it's like this horse, this very sexy horse. You're just looking at her eyes here. And I went into Philadelphia because I wanted to get it framed in a lucite box, which I think, again, makes it more modern and fresh looking than something that would be framed. Over here, there's another piece of art that is by me. This is called Wonky Black Tulips. And it's a tablescape. I started doing tablescapes really only recently because a friend of mine commissioned me to do one for her. And I really liked the way it turned out. So I thought, okay, I'll try another one. So it hasn't been framed yet, but I kind of like it. I made up the flowers. They're not really flowers that look like that, but I wanted them to have a lot of personality. So that's what they're doing over there. Well, I want to tell you about when we bought this house. It was a sort of a strange, long courtship. We were not initially planning on living in this area. We just stopped here really to rent for a year while we looked for our warm climate and our first floor master and our downsized house. But I have a sister nearby, and it ended up being so great to be near her and also to be, in this lovely area that we didn't know very well. So we decided to buy a house and so we ended up buying, of course, one second floor master in a cold climate, not particularly downsized. So it wasn't what we planned. And when I walked in here, I did not think of green for this room. It was already a closed off room. It was a dead end room because this was completely wall. There's almost no reason to come to this room because it was sort of hard to get in and out of. But once we opened it up with Gardner Fox, I realized that we could go dark here. And I thought about navy blue because that's a really cool dark color too. but it seems a little more predictable. So I just thought, why not green? And I love green and black and white. One thing I didn't mention was that these drapes, I'm crazy about window treatments, and these are really, really special. I don't like anybody else to touch my window treatments either. But this has 2 trims on it. This little bead is one trim, and then this is another one. But the thing that's so special is it's a faux silk, and it's interlined. So there's a lining in the back, and then there's a lining inside, and that's what makes it have a little bit of a sort of heavy in a nice way. You know, it drapes really beautifully, and if you do get the chance to touch them, which I would rather you didn't, they feel really good too. Let's see. Oh, I should mention this rug. I'm a little bit of I have to watch myself and not go too crazy with animal prints. This is a antelope print, but the reason I want to point it out is it's so forgiving of accidents or spills, and it looks great. And even though it is beige colors, it really lightens up this room, which could easily go very dark, being so dark green. That also is why I picked out this lucite table, because I didn't want anything visually heavy, and I think it's really just a nice open, light feeling for the room. So that is really most of what I wanted to talk about here. I just put this plate wall up a couple of months ago. All my friends and relatives have predicted that all the plates will fall, but so far they're holding on really great. This is a pattern called Island Tree, and it was made, I think, in the mid-1900s. And this one, I believe, was not Lenox, another China maker, but almost every major China maker made a version of this, and they're all really quite fun and lively and have this kind of crazy tree in the middle of them. So we have the green room on one side of the foyer, and on the other side we have the dining room. And the dining room is a place where we gather a lot with friends and family. It's a place we use a lot, especially in the cold months. So I wanted this to be very friendly and versatile. This table expands to seat about 12 or even 14 if we squeeze people in on either end. This light fixture is a flower, which is a very, very significant kind of symbol to me, because I love gardening and flowers and flower arranging. I'm a member of a garden club, and I actually found this in an online store, but I've never seen it anywhere else. So I feel very happy about that too. Another sort of gardening element we have in this room are these faux boxwood topiaries, which are really very formal and speak to kind of an English garden sensibility, which I really love a lot. And again, here's some more window treatments that I really like. These are patterned with a very famous old print called Pine Hollyhock. It comes in a lot of different colorways. This one's navy and light blue. It comes in a beautiful charcoal and I think a couple of other ones. So normally I really like solid colored drapes, but for this room I wanted to have the Pine Hollyhock because it's a favorite, and I decided to get the lamp shades also made out of the Pine Hollyhock. So that's what we have here. Little element of pink. I'm a fan of pink, as you'll see in the next room. This is an interesting piece. It's called an upholsterer's mirror, and it is itself upholstered, and apparently upholsterers once upon a time might be working on something, a piece of furniture, and they stick their pins into here, so they would always be handy. And I haven't seen this anywhere else. I got it at a store up in Connecticut when I was attending Trade Secrets, which is a really fun garden and antiquity kind of and garden tour event that was organized by Bunny Williams many years ago and continues every year. Her garden is always on it, and I totally recommend you go to it if you like gardens and you like garden things. This is just a fun little detail, these tassels. I had these chairs and this server were sort of boring brown pieces, so I had them lacquered, and I really love the way it came out because, I don't know, you see the lines a little bit more in the lighter color, and I think it just, again, seems so fresh to have that. I don't know if you can see this, but this is a very furry fabric, so if you sit down there, you kind of get a little surprise of softness. The wallpaper in here is a kind of grass cloth, but its scale and texture is really a little bit exaggerated, so it feels like a cozy little sweater. People also comment on that a lot. These are old, so they contrast with these candelabra over here, the white ones that are sort of modern and new, but I really like the contrast. I got these at a consignment store that's nearby, and I think they're really great. Dining room can always use more candlelight as far as I'm concerned. Then there's a piece of art here that I really love. It ties in, of course, with the pink and blue and the chinoiserie theme that is also one of my favorites. This is a painting by Jan Weir, and she is someone who I've actually taken art classes with and who continues to paint really beautiful things. One of her favorite design still life approaches that she uses is she's somebody that loves fabric, so she likes to paint a fabric pattern in the background of her still life, and that's what you see here. That's a little ambitious. If you're a painter, it'd be much easier just to do a bunch of solid colors or textures, but she goes the extra mile and adds that interesting, surprising element. The vibe in this dining room when I'm hosting or having people over is, fortunately or unfortunately, kind of over the top, especially with garden arrangements, tables, settings, centerpieces. I don't know, I really like everybody to sit down and be at the same table if I can, because it's just more fun. The way I like to set up the table if we're eating in here is probably the table would be expanded. I have a beautiful linens that I love. And especially I love, look at these. These are amazing, huge. These are beautiful starched antique napkins. And I get them basically dry clean because I can't make them look so perfect if I try and iron them myself. And I use, you'll see on a table that we have outside set up for my sister's birthday tonight, we have napkin rings that have been in my family. Some of them are newer, some are older, but I love to use those because they really chime with how my family had dinner together every night. There were 5 kids. My mom wanted to always use cloth napkins, but she didn't want to wash the napkins every night, so we had napkin holders and we put our napkin back in and used it for a few days or a week before it was washed. And then my china is in the kitchen, but the reason it's in there is I use it every day because it reminds me so much of my parents, and I don't want to save it just for a special occasion. Before we go into the kitchen, I want to show you the cozy room. Come with me. Now, there is a lot going on in this room. I have a friend, I had an art show recently, and a friend who helped me hang paintings all over the house and in my art studio. And she insisted on taking a lot of stuff out because I think she thought it would be visually distracting. So I guess it could be too much for some people, but I really love it. I always wanted, when I moved to this house, I knew I wanted significant amount of pink. So I have all these pink drapes, and they are not custom drapes. The other ones that we saw are custom, but these are not. And I think if you can't afford custom drapes, a really great, easy thing to do is to buy them online from, you know, any place. Lots of places have them, West Elm, RH. And then you can have a beautiful tape, have a tailor, like a dry cleaner tailor can put that on. And then the key is really probably to order it longer than you need. Hang the curtain where it should be hung, and make sure you get them hemmed. Don't just hang the curtain depending on the length you bought, because it's probably going to be too low. These are hung, they could even go higher, closer to the ceiling. Usually that's better. And then if they puddle on the floor, then you should get them hemmed. But don't just get something that's shorter because they're less expensive. Anyways, it looks very custom. They don't hang quite as perfectly as custom drapes, but they are really very pretty, I think, and a good solution, especially when you need so many panels like in this room. One of the things I love in this room is the rug. It is a rug that was designed by a woman who has a store in Philadelphia. She also sells, her family's Persian. They've been in the rug business for generations. But this is one of her original designs, and it was custom colored for me, as kind of all her rugs, her original rugs are. And it's a very fanciful feel with lots of curls and curlicues. So I like that a lot. But what is interesting is that she draws inspiration for her designs from skyline and rooftops in Philadelphia. I'm not sure what building this came from, but that's where the idea came from. We use this design, we have used it for Gardner Fox clients with different colorways, and she, the rug designer, can change the shape of all these things as well as the color. So it's a really fun piece to have in here. The other thing here I wanted to mention is this beautiful arrangement is just about 5 or 6, they're not branches, they're actually shrubs. It's meadow rue or thalictrum, and it grows with these beautiful tiers of parallel leaves, and it just makes a really pretty arrangement with nothing else in a vase. So just wanted to show that off. In here we have some art pieces. This one feels very personal to me. It's a photograph by Joyce Tennyson, and it means a lot to me because Joyce Tennyson was in the first book that I wrote, which is called What I Know Now, Letters to My Younger Self. So Joyce Tennyson wrote to her younger self when she was a young photographer trying to break into New York. And at that time, photography and who could make it and who was sort of making it or not making it was really determined by just a few old white men writing for influential magazines, and they didn't let her in. They didn't let very many women photographers in at all. So her letter was to her younger self about that. And it was a beautiful letter. But anyways, this piece is autobiographical. So this is a man turning his back on a young girl. And it's very ephemeral, and it has this gauzy sort of vibe to it. And I know that it's one of the pieces she's the most proud of, so I really love this. And then this one over here is by a man who is an art teacher at the boarding school that I went to. And it's actually the hospital, the entrance of the hospital on Ellis Island. So the hospital is closed to people, or at least it always has been. But he was able to gain entry. And in order to get this shot, he had to open the shutter, and I think he had to leave for hours, just left it open because it was so dark. There was very little light. And that round shape at the top is where a clock used to be at the entry of the hospital. But to me, it has a kind of a look of a cathedral also. And I think it's a really wonderful visual image, but what it signifies is even better, which is that so many immigrants came here sick and unwell. They couldn't gain entry, but instead of turning them away, we made them well, and they were able to enter the country after they regained their health. When we were looking at this house, this was the room that really made me feel like, ooh, I think this is the place, because it has higher ceilings, it has a feeling of airiness. At the same time, it has this very large, very nice fireplace. And honestly, when we first looked at the house, I had no idea how great this fireplace is, because it has a hearth, it's raised. So when you're sitting down, you have the fire really going almost at eye level. So it's become the cozy room here. And it was configured quite differently when we looked at this. I think they had a sofa kind of facing the fireplace and chairs on either end. So we wanted to really make this a place that a lot of people could sit down. So you'll see there are a lot of chairs. I really like having a bar in this room and available for friends to help themselves. The reason the bar and happy hour are really fun is because my dad, who was a West Point graduate, was a very straight arrow for years. He didn't drink, didn't smoke. Then finally came to the point where he enjoyed a wee dram, as he called it. So there are a couple things on here on this bar that remind me of him. One is this ice bucket that is actually not a very special ice bucket in terms of its value. I think it's silver plate. But when he was in school, he won an award that was called the Loving Cup. And whenever one of us would misbehave or do something wrong, he would say, I think you need to go worship at the Loving Cup. And it became such a family joke that we decided for, I think, his 50th birthday to give him another Loving Cup. And that is this one, which we talk about the need to worship at the Loving Cup. And we have all of our nicknames engraved on here. So that is kind of a reminder of my dad. And then my family actually has a big connection to the Army on both sides. My grandmother, actually my great-great-grandfather on my grandmother's side, was General Van Vliet, and he was in the Civil War. He was the quartermaster to Ulysses Grant, and he was awarded this silver tray for his service and also for his helping of orphans of sailors and soldiers. And it's dated 1867. So that has a place of honor, and I don't let people make drinks on it all the time because I don't want to scratch it up, but I definitely wanted to show it to you today. I've always been really a creative person, and so working on this house has been a total delight. Fortunately, I have a husband who is very accommodating and helpful about it, and then approves of almost everything I do. Before I moved here, though, my main creative focus was writing. I was a journalist for 25 years and then segued into writing books and later speaking, usually for corporations. The first book I did was this one called What I Know Now, Letters to My Younger Self. The idea was working with well-known women from all fields, all ages, and collaborating with them on writing a letter to themselves at a younger age with a message about something that would have helped them at a super difficult time. So that was really my focus. I did 3 of those books with that same theme, same concept. And then I started speaking for corporations. Typically, I'd work with women's groups at, say, Johnson & Johnson, large companies like that, and we would work with some of the top women at their companies on letters to their younger self and then present them to other women at the company. So it was a way to try and get women who are, not very many of them, at the top at some of these companies. It's a way to kind of spread the wealth of other women in the company, understanding them, getting to know them, and most importantly, seeing that they're not perfect. They didn't have sort of a, effortless rise to the top, which is what you tend to think. And that's what actually people think about the people in this book too, is that, Queen Noor and Madeleine Albright, all these people had no problem, but actually they did. They had a lot of problems and difficulties that are not so different from ours. So that was a really fulfilling career, but when I moved here, I just really felt, okay, I've done that. I don't want to beat that concept to death. And I really leaned more into art and started taking classes, and I've had a lot of fun doing that. It's so different to be creative visually in some ways, but I do feel like interior design, which is what I do now for Gardner Fox, is also very creative and rewarding. Making people's houses be filled with happiness and light and color is, I think, one of the greatest jobs on earth. Speaking of Gardner Fox, they remodeled our kitchen and they did a great job. I'd love to show that to you. Should we go check it out? So here we are in a kitchen that is so different from what it used to look like. And there's somebody very important you should meet here, Wonder Girl. Here she is. Hello, good girl. You want to say hi? She's a rescue dog, and believe it or not, the rescue team named her Wonder Girl, and we decided you can't improve on that. So she's continuing. She's about 13 years old now, but she still looks very beautiful on white surfaces so that you can see how her colors are still strong. This is a beautiful banquette that I had recovered recently with green on the back so that you can see it's talking here to this mural. This mural is so fun. It reminds me of Where the Wild Things Are, that artist. And when you have the kitchen lit up at night, even a little bit, and you're coming in from outside, it's just so fun because you've got the greenery outside and then you're sort of headed towards another green forest inside, so that's fun. This banquette, I was going to say, is also usually covered up because that's where Wonder Girl and her compatriot like to sleep all day long, but for you, it's uncovered. This camel I really love. I got it on Cherish. I think I seem to have a thing for white ceramic pieces, especially if they're animals, and I thought, since the real rascal of the two dogs is out of the house right now, I could put these little meadow-like flowers around it and pretend that he's in a meadow. Let's see. Oh, this is really something interesting that I did. Kitchens have so many hard surfaces. So, especially because, we walk in from the side entrance through the cozy room to the kitchen. This is a big piece of what you see, and I really didn't want just a boring piece of wood or cabinetry. So it's an upholstered panel with a little bit of nail head trim, and it's faux leather, so you can use a sponge on it, which I really haven't had to do that often, but both ends are upholstered, and it's a nice little bit of softness, I think, for the kitchen. This is a quartzite table countertop, and it's got a nice pattern. It's a lot like marble, I think, in terms of its warmth and look. And I have found it really helpful and useful, pretty durable. Here's another piece of art by Jan Weir, who did the piece in the dining room, and it's of Wonder Girl. I gave a painting of my sister's dog to her for her birthday a few years ago. And as a surprise, she gave me one by the same artist of Wonder Girl for my birthday that year. And she likes to put either wreaths around their neck or flower crowns on the pets, which I think is really cute. I also think it's a really exceptional likeness. This kitchen used to be very dark. It was an old, 1960s, 70s kitchen with a peninsula, one glass door over here, and one window over the sink, and lots of cabinetry overhead. So when Gardner Fox remodeled it, I said I really want a lot of natural light. So we've got a lot of glass in here and only a handful of upper cabinets. So to help us store things, we put a whole wall of pantry shelving in the garden room at the end there. So we have to walk a few steps to get things, but it's really fine. I'd much rather have the light. The floor is a tile that looks like wood, and I knew I wanted a herringbone pattern to have some energy and motion going on in here. And just as a little bit of emphasis, we put this brass inlay, obviously in the same shape as the herringbone. So it doesn't really shout at you, but it is a little bit of bling there, just that catches your eye. And you'd be surprised how many people actually notice it. The backsplash in here is kind of unusual. I think they're usually rectangular tiles of some color or style, usually subway tile. But I really fell in love with this because it's so different. It has a lot of energy. It looks like leaves or flowers in a kind of a collaged way. And I think it actually ends up sort of referencing the wall mural with all the trees and the leaves over there too. So I think it's really a garden theme in the kitchen, sort of. I keep my china in the kitchen because it's my good china, but I like to use my good china every day because it reminds me of my parents who actually used it every day, and it was their parents before them. So we have these drawers right next to the dishwasher, which makes it really handy for putting away and taking out. This is the china that was my grandmother's. It's called Rose Minton, and it's very sweet. It's very old-fashioned, but I really like the flowers on it and the colors. I have a lot of blue in my house and in the dining room, and it works with that, but it also works almost anywhere. So that's very handy. The china I got when I was married is also nice. It's Queensbird by Spode, and it's quite sweet too. I might need to switch out my everyday back to my wedding china, because now that I look at it, I realize how much I like this one too. But we are kind of china aficionados here. I'm not as bad as my sister. She's got a whole wall of it. I've mentioned my sister a couple of times, and it just so happens that today is her birthday, and I'm hosting a party for her later. I've set up the patio outside with an amazing centerpiece floral arrangement. Let's go take a look. I can't wait to show you. This is for my sister, Jody. The setup is really a nice block print tablecloth. I'm a real fan of block prints lately, and I think this one is really nice with the china that my parents and grandparents used. Actually, full disclosure, my sister has even more of the same china, so she will feel very at home. This flower arrangement I made, we have a sort of a family tradition for Thanksgivings and birthdays to try and do something a little bit extravagant, a little bit different, a little fun in terms of centerpieces or foliage or flowers. Some of this came from my garden, this lace cap hydrangea and these hydrangea And this is a pretty Baptisia foliage. The others I bought from the snapdragons and this Queen Anne's lace, these little green bachelor buttons, bought from a really great flower exchange that I found recently. These are, a lot of people have these now. I think they're really great. I love candles, but these are lights you can't really see during the daylight, but they are a nice way to have lamps on the table without any cords. And then these raffia mats, I think, kind of chime with the block print. It's a little bit of a casual feel, even though we've got china and silver. And then these napkin rings are really part of a family tradition. My parents use them. We use them almost every night. So some of these, like this one, is newer, but this one's quite old. And this one has my father's initials on it. This one is so cute because we carried on having napkin rings at a lot of our dinners. My daughter, when she was in high school, took a silversmithing class, and she decided to make a napkin ring for my husband. And the way she did the monogram is sort of the opposite of how monograms are usually done. The center initial is tiny, and the other ones on the side are much bigger. So I think that's really cute. The other thing I like to do when we entertain is really start out at the allée, because at sort of 5:30, 6 o'clock at night, there's a little bit of shade and dappled light. It's a great place to have a little cocktail, have a destination to go to, and then change scenes having dinner here later on. We just put in this pergola, which is a real game changer, I think, and a new product, so maybe people won't know about it. It's automated, so I can open the louvers and close them, changing the light conditions depending on what you want. In the summer, it's southern exposure here and super hot, so it's nice to have shade and be able to sit outside. You can just angle it and have a little bit. And then in the winter, when you really don't want shade, you are craving light inside, I can keep them open. They close automatically if it rains. So I do have covers for my furniture, but I'm starting to feel like maybe I really don't need them all the time because it's pretty safe under here. This is a patio we put in 2017, a couple years after we moved here. And there was just a small kind of deck here, and we wanted to take it all the way to line up with the end of the garage wall there, so that we could obviously have more space, but also we could have a nice outlook at that end of the patio over to the distant views. This is about 2 acres. In Chester County, where we are, Willistown Township, actually, there's a 4-acre sort of zoning minimum for most places, but I believe this was at an earlier time. For some reason, a handful of houses right around here have a smaller acreage, 2 acres, which is, believe me, plenty for me. But it's been fun to really learn so much about gardening here on so much property. One of the first things we did is decide we don't want to just look at a hard garage wall over here. So we put this trellis up, and this is a clematis. It's either lady die or princess die, and it's not a super flat, showy clematis like a lot of them are. It's more of a tube shape, and the hummingbirds really love this. That's the kind of flower that they really attracted to. And then I started this espalier in 2017. It was only 2 levels. It's 4 kinds of apples grafted onto the stock. So I brought it up 1 more level and made it wider. And apples actually seem to have a every other year kind of bumper crop. I'll get apples every year, but on the second year, there may be, 40 apples on these 3 limbs. and then the year after that, there'll just be a handful. So it's apparently just something that you get used to in apple orchards. This was, I don't know if you would know this or not, but espaliers were created to maximize fruit production in minimal space. So if you didn't have a lot of land, but you wanted to grow a lot of fruit, you would have rows of these espaliers. I just wanted to have something green against the garage wall. So that is something we did, and it seems like it's doing pretty well. Now I'd love to show you my art studio. It's where I spend a lot of time, especially if I have a show coming up. Come on with me. So the art studio is just across the way. This is past a few garden beds, including these towers that are beautiful in the winter when nothing's on them, and then really nice when the clematis starts blooming. I have some garden beds over there with Verbena bonariensis growing, and there's some Turk's cap lilies that are those fun upturned petal flowers. Here is the alley leading to the art studio. This is one of our favorite cocktail spots. It's the allium here are just finished, so they're not bright purple anymore. I let them stay up really quite a while until they're almost perfectly dried out, and then I like to collect them and use them later dried, stuck into Christmas trees so that it looks like spiky balls all over the tree. This is very classic garden design, the Leuten's bench. It doesn't look that comfortable, but it really is as long as you have the pillows. We add a few more chairs over there, depending on how many people we have. This is a really great Brio fire pit. I don't know if you know about them. They really don't smoke much after you get the fire going. It's got this double-walled insulation so that it swirls around and you can sit close to it without having to constantly get up and move around to avoid the smoke. So that's a good thing for winter. So here we are at the studio, small but mighty. This is the art studio. It's a really charming little space, and we had it insulated so that with a little air conditioner in the summer and a space heater in the winter, it's very cozy. This piece is something I'm still working on right now. This one over here is a little hard to see, but it's an abstract of basically a map. I used to do a lot of the abstracts. I noticed in my brother-in-law's boat, he has a chart plotter, and it's a very brightly colored thing showing the depth and the land masses in different colors. It looks like very abstract art all by itself, so I decided I would do that. So I have a whole series of these I did of the Chesapeake. This one is a Matisse-inspired star. He used to draw and paint 9, 10 spiked stars that are all completely asymmetrical. I've always loved those, so I decided to do a bunch of those. And this is just an abstract of using some of my favorite colors, which are reds and pinks and blues and turquoise. And over here, because you met her earlier, you might recognize this girl. That's Wonder Girl. We call her the love bully because she makes you love her. She demands it. And that's the art studio. Okay, we're coming back inside now, and we are in my garden room, which is probably the craziest room in the house because I picked out this Marimekko wallpaper I've always wanted to use, and it's that similar green as in the green room. The green room color is actually a Benjamin Moore color, seaweed. I don't really like the name, but it's a good color. I think of it as emerald. This is a little bit brighter, and it also allowed me to use this dark green Mexican tile that I think is so atmospheric. We did this really great shape here It's a Korean countertop, which is not a very fancy countertop, but I really was interested more in the contrast, black, white, green, than the material. And I love this faucet. It's a Rohr faucet, and it's where we can pop the dogs in and give them a bath. Actually, we can come in from just outside and do it easily without them getting muddy tracks all over the place. This is actually appropriately named the garden room because I do arrange flowers. This is a butcher block actually from a butcher in Maine. My husband died when I got this because it's so heavy. None of us will ever be able to move it again. I can't even remember how we got it in here. But fortunately, I think it's well placed. So I do flower arranging here. Dog supplies are in here. Garden things and some art supplies. Some art things I need for cleaning my brushes, like dirty jars, are in here. Flower tubes. I don't know if you've ever used those, but if you ever need to put a flower in something that doesn't hold water, you can use a flower tube. Just fill it with water, put the cap on it, and then stick your flower in. And then they're not super special, but tons of vessels and containers for arranging flowers or just sticking a few buds in. I think that some of these are olive oil glass jars. They're nothing but the shape are shapes I like. So, oh, and this is really fun. This is if people are out at the alley having a cocktail and it's time for dinner, I can summon them. And this is nice too. You see this more now, but when we did this, it wasn't very common to have this wire mesh instead of a wood panel. I think it's just fun. And then I love these big chunky brass handles too. They just add a little bit of jewelry. Oh, and I forgot to tell you, I just painted all these designs on this gold lantern. I found this down in West Palm Beach in a consignment store. And I think it has such a cute shape, but I knew I wanted to put it in here, so I just took the opportunity to paint a little design in green and black on it, and I think it came out pretty well. Home. That is a big word, isn't it, for such a little word? To me, home is a light-filled space with a spirited energy that draws people in and causes them to want to gather. And of course, I can't think of home without thinking family. Not only family, but certainly family is a big piece of what makes a home. So my job is really to provide the setting that allows people to be joyful and connect with each other and happy. Homeworthy, it has been a true pleasure to have you here today. You've been great. Thank you so much. But now I do have to prepare for my sister's birthday party tonight. So see you later.
Thanks for watching. Go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content and shopping guides.